Chapter 894. The words, illegitimate daughter, were undoubtedly humiliating. Gong Coco glanced at her. She had never seen such a shameless person in her life. The original body's mother was the first wife, but they just divorced. If one really wanted to calculate, the original body was the first wife's daughter. Gong Wanwan's mother was supported by a concubine. To put it bluntly, in front of the original body, she was only a concubine's daughter. As a concubine's daughter, she actually dared to say that the first wife's daughter was an illegitimate daughter. Gong Coco felt sad for the original body. Being born in such a family, it was no wonder that she had a dull personality. Gong Wanwan saw that Gong Coco did not speak and thought that she had returned to the time when she was easy to bully. Her voice became louder. What are you looking at? Am I wrong? You have no conscience. Ungrateful wretch. How long has my family raised you? We brought you back and let you smoothly climb up the social ladder. But what about you? After you got married, you disappeared without a trace. Not only do you have no conscience, you are also unfilial. When the surrounding people heard this, they all looked at Gong Kiki with disdain. More and more people surrounded the clothing store. Even the store manager couldn't do anything about it. Since ancient times, being unfilial was a big label. Gong Wanwan knew how to suppress people. The assistant saw that this Gong Coco did not know what was good for her and wanted to teach her a lesson. However, Gong Coco reached out and stopped him. From the moment Gong Coco stood out, everyone had a feeling that their eyes lit up. Although Gong Coco was only 18, she was already an old lady in Dayu State. She had seen all kinds of big scenes in the palace. She had also been with Uncle Chiu. In terms of experience and bearing, the eldest princess's bearing was not something that ordinary people could compare to. Take Jiang Shanka for example. Others were respectful to him. Only Gong Coco could treat him normally because they were the same person. However, Gong Coco did not have any tolerance for others. You said that I am an illegitimate daughter. Gong Coco's voice was pleasant to the ears, but it carried an imposing aura. Gong Coco knew something was wrong the moment she opened her mouth. She still had the same face, but she looked much more noble. However, when she thought about how Gong Coco had no background, she puffed out her chest. I'm talking about you. Not only are you an illegitimate daughter, you're also a village woman who grew up in the countryside. That's why they're so uncultured. Gong Coco was amused. Who was the one with no manners? I'm your sister. Tell me, how did I become an illegitimate daughter? Gong Coco smiled mockingly. I'm 24 this year, and you're only 20. Your mother married my father for 21 years. If you say I'm an illegitimate daughter, then what are you? Everyone was in disbelief because Gong Coco looked too young. If she did not say anything, people would have thought she was 16. Therefore, when Gong Coco said she was an illegitimate daughter, they believed her. They did not expect her to be 24 years old. I remember now. She seems to be an actress. Recently, she's acting in the Ming Dynasty. I've seen her on TV before. She's 24, but she's much prettier in real life. Someone in the crowd whispered. Gong Coco was instantly embarrassed. She did not expect Gong Coco to refute. If I say you're an illegitimate daughter, then you are. Your mother shamelessly seduced my father, and you shamelessly seduced young Master Jiang. If you didn't do anything, why would young Master Jiang be with you? Young Master Jiang. There were many people with the surname Jiang in Haidian City, but the only one who could bear the title of young master was Jiang Shanka. Who was Jiang Shanka? He was the crown prince of the entertainment industry with countless resources. He was involved in a wide range of fields, from film, entertainment, real estate, and shipping. He was involved in all of them and was one of the best in the industry. At such a young age, he was on the list of the world's richest people. He was even more handsome than celebrities. Such a person was undoubtedly a man who could make all the socialites in the country go crazy. And he was together with this third-rate celebrity. Gong Coco found it strange that everyone was suddenly staring at her. However, she was not easy to bully. I didn't seduce anyone. It's Jiang Shanka who likes me. Gong Coco raised her head and said firmly. If an ordinary woman said such words, they would have laughed themselves to death. However, Gong Coco gave people the feeling that she had a strong aura. That pair of beautiful cat eyes glared angrily. With a straight face and a slightly raised chin, there was an indescribable cuteness in her sonorous and forceful manner. The crowd was silent. Gong Wanwan was stunned for a moment, then laughed out loud. Gong Coco, are you delusional? Young Master Jiang likes you. It's been so long. Did young Master Jiang touch you? Why didn't he touch her? Gong Coco raised her eyebrows. She felt that such words should not be announced in public. Hence, she only said arrogantly, if he doesn't like me, does it mean that he likes you? Gong Coco's firm words made everyone gasp in surprise. When they looked at Gong Coco's excessively fair and delicate face, they actually felt that what she said made sense. Although she was just a small celebrity, she was so pretty. It was not impossible that young Master Jiang liked her. Outside the crowd, Jiang Shanka couldn't help but smile. They had always kept their marriage a secret. He also wanted to find a suitable opportunity to announce Gong Coco's identity. However, there was no time like the present. Now was not a bad time. Gong Wanwan was forced to take a step back by Gong Coco's gaze. However, when she thought of Gong Coco snatching young Master Jiang away, she felt angry. Then, she glared at the store manager. What are you waiting for? Can anyone buy your family's clothes now? She's just a third-rate celebrity. She can't afford your clothes at all. Do you really think that she's the young madam of the Jiang family? Why aren't you chasing her out? The assistant was a little angry. Miss Gong, don't go too far. Our young master. When did I say that she's not my wife? A low and hoarse male voice was heard. Everyone couldn't help but make a path for him. Many people didn't know Jiang Shanka because he rarely appeared in banquets and magazines. However, there were still people who had seen him before. When he walked in, someone exclaimed. It's really young Master Jiang. Gong Wanwan was even more shocked. Didn't they say that their relationship wasn't good? Gong Coco also liked Meng Xiaoqing. How could they be out shopping together? When Jiang Shanka saw Gong Kiki looking at him angrily, he hurriedly took a step forward and pulled her into his embrace. He also took the opportunity to kiss her forehead. I'm really sorry that I'm late. Coco, can you forgive me? Gong Coco pouted and asked seriously, Jiang Shanka, you said yesterday that you like me. However, they didn't believe you. Tell them so that they won't bother me over such a small matter. Jiang Shanka loved her bossy look. His handsome face had a doting smile, but his gaze swept across the crowd coldly. Whoever doesn't believe me can come and ask me. My wife is timid. Don't bully her. Chapter 895. Timid, bullied her. Everyone looked at them innocently. Gong Coco was so strong-willed just now. Who could bully her? Gong Wanwan widened her eyes in disbelief. Young Master Jiang. You. How can you be with her? Jiang Shanka smiled. She's my wife. Why can't I be with her? But you, if you dare to do anything to Coco in secret, you'll end up like Lu Lan last night. His smiling words made Gong Wanwan's legs tremble and her face turn pale. Young Master Jiang was really the one who settled Lu Lan's matter. The word wife was like a stone that caused 1,000 ripples. Everyone exclaimed in disbelief. They didn't expect Jiang Shanke to really be married. There was no news at all. It was too sudden. Jiang Shanke didn't care about what everyone thought. He carried Gong Coco and walked out. There was a banquet at home in 2 days. It was a good opportunity to announce it. Moreover, he had plans to hold another grand wedding. After throwing everyone to the back of his mind, Jiang Shanke left with Gong Kiki. But, just as he was about to board the car, he was blocked by a woman. That woman was very beautiful and probably had a high status. Gong Coco could sense the aura of a rich family's daughter on her. It was far from what Gong Wanwan could compare to. However, she didn't feel threatened at all. She sat in the car obediently and watched as Jiang Shanke was blocked by her. His assistant wanted to step forward but was stopped by the woman's 3 bodyguards. Jiang Shanke, who is she to you? Gao Sun glanced at Gong Coco with evil intentions. She was just a third-rate actress with good looks. How dare she steal her man? Jiang Shanke said impatiently, Miss Gao, didn't you hear me just now? She's my wife. It turned out that Jiang Shanke had already noticed that Gao Sun was also in the mall. Gao Sun snorted. Don't try to lie to me. I asked my cousin to check. You didn't even get a marriage certificate. What kind of wife is she? Jiang Shanke didn't expect her to be so clingy. He frowned and said, investigating men without permission. Is this how the Gao family teaches you? Forgive me for being unable to agree. Step aside. You. Gao Sun glared at him. She was so angry that her eyes were red. As the apple of the Gao family's eye, she and Jiang Shanke were well matched in terms of social status. She had treated Jiang Shanke as her only candidate for a husband since she was young. Although I don't know where you found this kind of low-class woman to escape from me, but Jiang Shanke, I'm telling you. I will definitely catch up with you. After she finished speaking, she glared fiercely at Gong Coco before leaving with her bodyguards in her stilettos. Jiang Shanke's face darkened slightly. If it weren't for the good relationship between the Jiangs and the Gaos, he really wouldn't have bothered with this woman. After getting into the car, he asked his assistant to drive. When he saw that Gong Coco was looking out the window and not at him, he was a little unhappy. He had performed so well just now. Shouldn't she reward him? Moreover, wasn't she angry at all after hearing what Gao Sun said? What's the matter? Jiang Shanke kept staring at her. It was hard for her to ignore him. Jiang Shanke sighed inwardly. Although this little girl was enlightened, she was still very slow. He pinched her tender little face and asked unhappily, Aren't you angry at what that woman said just now? Gong Coco looked at him with a puzzled expression. Why should I be angry? She touched her chin with her fair little hand. I'm prettier and younger than her. At the mention of this, Gong Coco was very happy. In Daiyu State, she was already an old lady at 18. But here, she was still in her prime. Which woman didn't want others to say that she was young? Even though Gong Coco used to stay cooped up in the palace and didn't come out, she had heard rumors that there was an old princess in Daiyu State who was worried about marriage. But now, she was young again. Jiang Shanke smiled and glanced at her. Yes, you're young. Where else do you want to go, little one? Gong Coco didn't have a goal, so she said, Let's go around. I want to go everywhere. Jiang Shanke thought for a moment. He had a very big flower bed in the suburbs. Gong Coco would definitely like it there. So he said to his assistant, Let's go to the suburbs. When the car drove to the flower bed in the suburbs, Gong Coco was attracted by the large expanse of flowers and the dreamy little house. Jiang Shanke had a rare holiday, so he told his assistant not to follow him and to walk around by himself. The assistant wanted to say something but stopped. Not only was he Jiang Shanke's assistant, but he was also his personal bodyguard. But the country's security had always been good, so it shouldn't be a problem for him to leave for a while. So Jiang Shanke and Gong Coco went to the flower bed. On the way, Jiang Shanke told her some basic information about this world as they strolled hand in hand. When the sun came out, Gong Coco took off her coat. Her white silk dress fluttered in the wind, and she looked as clean as an angel who had mistakenly entered the human world. For some reason, Jiang Shanke suddenly felt a lingering fear. If she didn't look like Gong Coco, she wouldn't have been sent to him. What if the person who picked her up was a bad person? So when he saw the girl playing in the flower bed, Jiang Shanke couldn't help but say, "Kiki." The girl glanced back and smiled. The warm sunlight shone on her good mood. She seemed to be a girl who could maintain her optimism at any time. If Jiang Shanke frowned. Dressed in a casual suit, he lacked a sense of calmness and gained a sense of youth. At this moment, he was like an inexperienced youth who would fret over small matters. "Actually, it's nothing. I'm just afraid. If the person who met me wasn't you, would you have met a bad person?" He thought about how Gong Coco was so innocent that she didn't know anything about men. He felt that it was very dangerous. Gong Coco giggled. Her big cat eyes squinted as she said proudly, "Don't worry. If the person I met at the beginning wasn't you, nothing would have happened." She clenched her fists. "If anyone has bad intentions, I'll beat them up. Although, it seems to you that I don't understand a lot of things, but who is good and who is bad, I can still feel it." "I thought you were a good person from the beginning." Moreover, she felt that he was a person in a high position. This kind of person would disdain to do bad things to a weak girl. She had always been very accurate in judging people. Jiang Shanke's heart relaxed. To be honest, this was the first time someone said that he was a good person. He was also thinking too much. Anyway, the first person Gong Coco met was him. This fact couldn't be changed. What was there to worry about? Just when it was a sweet and warm moment, Gong Coco's expression suddenly changed. She hugged Jiang Shanke and fell down. A bullet brushed past her body. She was like a cat whose hair stood on end as she stared at a group of people running from afar. "There are bad people." Jiang Shanke was shocked. He quickly looked at her. "Are you okay?" Gong Coco shook her head. Then, she pulled Jiang Shanke and ran. The other party had such a terrifying weapon. If they were to fire together, she might not be able to guarantee Jiang Shanke's safety. Chapter 896. Jiang Shanke hurriedly called his assistant while he was sprinting. "Damn it! Chase them, don't let them get away." The man's exasperated voice could be heard from afar, but because the two of them were running very fast, they quickly shook them off and ran to a flower garden warehouse. Jiang Shanke really didn't expect that there would be people who dared to be so rampant in the country. Moreover, how did they know that he didn't go to the company today? It seemed like there was a mole by his side. "Kiki, don't be afraid. Someone will come to pick us up in a while." He hugged Gong Coco in his arms, but Gong Coco didn't listen to him. She was listening to the sounds outside seriously. Suddenly, she covered Jiang Shanke's mouth and told him, "Don't talk. Someone's coming." The warehouse door was kicked open. Because it was a flower garden warehouse, rows of metal shelves were filled with nurturing seedlings. The flower garden here wasn't open to the public yet, so there weren't many gardeners. Fortunately, they had let the gardeners go back before they came. Otherwise, who knew what these vicious people would do if they came? Gong Coco brought Jiang Shanke to hide in the large warehouse. There were 6 people on the other side, and each of them had a gun in their hands. They couldn't rashly go against them. Don't hide, big CEO. The leader of the group, a man in black, ordered his men to spread out and search. He knocked his gun on the metal shelf beside him. His sharp eyes swept across the large warehouse, and the corner of his mouth curved into a cruel smile. In order to catch you, we prepared meticulously for half a year. It's rare for the big CEO to be in such a good mood today, coming to the suburbs. The heavens are really helping us. Gong Coco's eyes flashed with a trace of guilt. If it wasn't for playing with her, Jiang Shanke wouldn't have appeared here today. They definitely wouldn't have dared to be so rampant in the city. Jiang Shanke squeezed her hand. He already knew who the other party was. This matter was caused by him, and it had nothing to do with Kiki. Even if today didn't happen, they would find an opportunity to make a move one day. Gong Coco suspected that the other party was deliberately hitting the metal frame with a gun to confuse her. However, she still heard someone slowly approaching. She whispered to Jiang Shanke, "I'll take care of this. Don't say anything." Hearing that, Jiang Shanke looked at Gong Coco disapprovingly. Gong Coco was a member of a gang, and these thugs were definitely not ordinary people. How could he let a girl stand in front of him? He was just about to say, "I'll do it." Gong Coco said, "You take care of the one behind." Jiang Shanke nodded and said worriedly, "You have to be careful." However, before he could finish speaking, Gong Coco's men seemed to have heard something and sped up towards them. Gong Coco's hand was as fast as lightning. She tapped the other party's wrist with her left hand, and the gun in his hand fell from his hand. He was shocked. Just as he was about to call for help, Gong Coco grabbed him by the throat and dragged him to a corner of a shelf. Jiang Shanke was relieved to see that she was so efficient. The enemy on his side also heard the noise and ran over. Before he could pull the trigger, Jiang Shanke grabbed his wrist. The other party couldn't help but fire a shot at the ceiling. Just as he was about to call for help, Jiang Shanke knocked him out with a small flower pot. "Over there." The remaining 4 men heard the commotion and quickly ran to the corner. However, Gong Coco had already retreated with Jiang Shanke. This was Jiang Shanke's first time seeing Qinggong. Even though Gong Coco didn't move much, they were already more than 10 meters away from the corner. At this moment, they were hiding behind another flower shelf and were on high alert. The leader saw that Jiang Shanke had taken care of 2 of his men in one go and that his gun had been snatched away. Could it be that he had made a mistake and that Jiang Shanke's skills were comparable to that of a top-notch expert? Especially the man lying in the corner. His wrist was broken. He was one of the more powerful ones among them, but he was killed without a sound. It seemed that Jiang Shanke wasn't a simple person. The remaining 4 men were on high alert. They didn't expect that there would be a flaw in their seemingly foolproof plan. The leader ordered the remaining 3 men to split into 2 groups to search for Qiao Lian while he held his gun and walked towards the last corner. I couldn't tell that the big CEO was quite skilled. Although he was speaking, his eyes and ears were alert. If there was anything to blame, it was this warehouse that was too big. What an evil rich man. But no matter how skilled you are, you're still no match for us. Are you still waiting for help? The man in black sneered, "When we came here, we blocked the only bridge. By the time they arrive, you'll already be dead." He wanted to use this method to destroy Jiang Shanke's faith. However, at this moment, Jiang Shanke whispered to Gong Coco, "Don't worry, they can take a plane here." As he spoke, he hugged Gong Coco protectively. Gong Coco was clearly stronger than him, but he still felt that Gong Coco was the one who needed protection. Gong Kiki raised her head and looked at him with a smile. Originally, she was also very worried about the gun in the other party's hand, but now, that fear suddenly disappeared. She stood on her tiptoes and kissed Jiang Shanke. "It's okay. Even if there's no one else, I'll protect you." Jiang Shanke's heart inexplicably warmed. If it wasn't for the wrong time, he really wanted to ravage this little thing. Let's see if she still dared to seduce him at this time. At this moment, 3 men came in their direction. Gong Coco whispered to Jiang Shanke to discuss. Jiang Shanke wanted to deal with the 2 men, but Gong Coco shook her head. The other party's leader was still waiting for an opportunity to make a move. They couldn't take the risk. In the end, they decided that Jiang Shanke would deal with the man coming from the left, and Gong Coco would deal with the 2 coming from the right. Jiang Shanke clenched the gun in his hand, then pressed down on Gong Coco and kissed her fiercely. An inexplicable light flashed in his eyes, and his tone was especially serious. "Little girl, you can't let anything happen to you. Do you understand?" Gong Coco smiled indifferently. "I should be the one saying that to you." After saying that, the 2 of them split up. The man Jiang Shanke was dealing with was quite strong, but Jiang Shanke's marksmanship wasn't weak either. When the gunshot sounded, Gong Coco and the 2 men on her side were ready to run in that direction. Gong Coco appeared behind them like a ghost, and then, 1 in each hand, she finished them off in less than 3 seconds. She hurriedly went to find Jiang Shanke. At this moment, Jiang Shanke and the other man had already fired a few shots. Because there were people to protect, Jiang Shanke suddenly felt that his skills had become much stronger. The last shot, he hit the opponent's wrist. Just as he was about to give the opponent the final blow, Gong Coco's voice suddenly came from behind. "Be careful." Jiang Shanke turned around and saw that not far away, the man in black coldly fired a shot at him. Chapter 897. At that moment, time seemed to pass very quickly, but also very slowly. In Gong Coco's eyes, the bullet that was flying towards Jiang Shanke's head suddenly became extremely slow, as if she could reach out and stop the bullet. She couldn't let Jiang Shanke die. This belief took over Gong Coco's entire mind. She suddenly reached out her hand and caught the bullet under Jiang Shanke's terrified gaze and the man in black's incredulous gaze. Jiang Shanke quickly knocked out the man in his hands and hugged Gong Coco in his arms. Her hand was still clenched tightly and blood was flowing out from between her fingers, scaring Jiang Shanke. Before the other party could react, Jiang Shanke hugged Gong Coco and hid. Gong Coco was in so much pain that her eyebrows were knitted together. She was only at the 3rd level of wind and nature and was unable to use her inner strength to materialize. But at that moment, she had gathered all her inner strength in her palm and forcefully materialized her inner strength to catch the bullet. Although it didn't penetrate her hand, it was still embedded in her flesh. Especially since the bullet was very hot, she had never suffered such a serious injury in her life. The man in black finally regained his senses. He wasn't in a hurry to chase after her. Instead, he looked as if he had been frightened and his heart was pounding non-stop. That little girl looked useless, but he didn't expect her to be able to catch a bullet with her bare hands. What kind of monster was she? Jiang Shanke carefully opened Gong Coco's hand. Her palm was badly mutilated and a bloody bullet was stuck to her flesh. Gong Coco gasped and threw the bullet away. At that moment, her hand seemed to hurt even more. At this moment, the sound of a propeller came from the sky. The man in black was shocked. He didn't expect Jiang Shanke's men to arrive so quickly. This was bad. Jiang Shanke saw Gong Coco's injury and his eyes turned red. He said in a low voice, "Rest." I'll be right back. Then, he got up and walked out. The man in black wanted to escape but was caught by Jiang Shanka. Before he could shoot, Jiang Shanka had already rushed over and pushed his hand against the metal frame, knocking the gun away. The man in black naturally wouldn't give up. Seeing that the helicopter was just outside, if he caught Jiang Shanka, he could still save his life. So, his eyes flashed fiercely and directly fought Jiang Shanka. In his 20 years of life, this was the first time Jiang Shanka fought with someone. But once he thought that the little girl was seriously injured because of him, Jiang Shanka couldn't calm his anger. He didn't even want to kill Jiang Shanka. Jiang Shanka was very scary when he was in a rage. It was as if he was not afraid of pain, let alone his life. The man in black's punches were punches. Their fists landed squarely on the ground. Both of them used all their strength and fought until their eyes were red. Gong Coco couldn't stand the pain, but she was a little worried when she heard the sounds of fighting. She squatted in a corner and poked her head out. She saw that the two of them had already fought for several rounds. She didn't know why, but in the era of internal energy, Gong Coco hated fighting with men the most. Not only was it not elegant, it was also degrading and ugly. But at this moment, Jiang Shanka was fighting for her. Her heart was pounding. In the past, Uncle Chio would beat bad guys for her, but every time, Uncle Chio would directly crush the other party. She didn't feel anything. On the contrary, now that she saw Jiang Shanka fighting someone of equal strength for her, she felt inexplicably nervous and worried, but also a little sweet. It was obvious that a person like Jiang Shanka would not normally fight with others. This was probably the first time in his life that he had acted like this. It was, for her, Jiang Shanka kicked the man in black to the ground, then grabbed his head and slammed it against the ground twice. Only then did he interrogate him coldly. Jiang Sun sent you, right? How dare he? Looks like the lesson from last time wasn't enough. The man in black was dizzy. His eyes were unfocused as he panted, I was only asked to do this. Don't kill me. At this moment, he was in despair. How could a CEO be so skilled in martial arts? Don't kill you. Jiang Shanka stood up and stomped on his abdomen. Seeing him curl into a ball in pain, Jiang Shanka felt a little better. Even if he didn't kill him, what awaited him would be more painful than death. And Jiang Sun. Just you wait. The door opened again. Jiang Shanka's assistant saw his CEO in a mess and was so frightened that his voice changed. CEO. Then, the police rushed in and took away the unconscious people in the warehouse. Jiang Shanka ignored them. Instead, he walked in front of Gong Coco and carried her in his arms. Gong Coco gasped. Her hand was injured, not her leg. Moreover, Jiang Shanka had just fought and had many injuries on his body. He looked more serious than her. You're injured. Under her doe-like gaze, Jiang Shanka looked away awkwardly. Don't look. His image must be terrible right now. What should he do if the little princess in his arms hates him? Gong Kiki seemed to have guessed his thoughts. It had to be said that he was really in a sorry state right now. His hair was messy, his face was bruised, and his tailored light-colored suit had long since become dirty and tattered. Compared to his usual noble and steady appearance, it was a far cry from his usual noble and steady appearance. But why did she find him adorable? With this thought in mind, Gong Kiki actually used her uninjured hand to hook around his neck and kiss him on the cheek. It's okay. You're not ugly at all. I like it very much. Jiang Shanka looked at her in astonishment. He saw that her eyes seemed to be filled with many little stars. He smiled and found her extremely adorable. But when he saw her bleeding hand, a trace of regret flashed in his eyes. Don't be afraid. I'll take you to the hospital immediately. You'll be fine. Gong Kiki looked at her hand and felt the pain again. However, she obediently nodded her head. It was so cute that it made one's heart melt. The plane took off quickly. In the city, President Jiang was probably the only one who would take a plane to see a doctor. Gong Kiki's hand was fine. After applying medicine and bandaging, it was fine. Jiang Shanke personally fed her. Looking at her pale face, he couldn't help but feel heartache. Don't do such a dangerous thing next time, okay? Gong Coco's hand didn't hurt much anymore. She looked at him with puffed-up cheeks. After swallowing the food, she said, I want to eat fish. Hearing this, Jiang Shanke quickly fed her the fish. The bones of the fish had been crushed by the machine, so Gong Coco could eat in big bites. She was so happy. Jiang Shanke fed her a mouthful and said, no matter what, you're not allowed to joke with your body. There won't be a next time. Gong Coco picked up a piece of fruit with her uninjured left hand and stuffed it into Jiang Shanke's mouth. Great CEO. Don't talk while eating. Chapter 898. Jiang Shanke didn't know what to do with her. After swallowing the fruit, he focused on feeding her. Seeing that her eyes were still clear, he sighed in his heart. Perhaps in Gong Coco's eyes, there was nothing to worry about. That heartless look really made people gnash their teeth in hatred. Because the wound wasn't too deep, Gong Coco said that she didn't want to take a break and wanted to continue working on the set. Jiang Shanke wondered why she was so dedicated to her work. Gong Coco's answer was very natural. Although I'm not the main lead and I've decided to stop acting after this, wouldn't it be irresponsible of me to be willful and delay the filming process? Jiang Shanke didn't expect her to have such awareness and expressed his support, so he got up early in the morning to help her get dressed. Gong Coco naturally enjoyed his service. Not to mention that she was injured. Even when she wasn't injured, she accepted Jiang Shanke's care as a matter of course. Jiang Shanke thought self-deprecatingly. He didn't expect that he would take care of someone else in his life, and he did it so willingly. After Gong Coco got dressed, she very sensibly kissed him on the cheek as a reward. Jiang Shanke's face was still covered with bandages, and he didn't look as calm as he usually did. Instead, he looked much younger. Gong Coco snickered. You look pretty good with that thing on your face. Jiang Shanke glared at the heartless little thing in front of him. He still had to think about how he was going to go to the company. He grabbed Gong Coco and kissed her fiercely. He said fiercely, I'll deal with you when you come back. Go now. After that, he changed out of his pajamas and went to the company. After all, there was still someone waiting for him to deal with. Gong Coco nodded and ran away quickly. Yu Tian was waiting in the nanny van. When she saw Gong Coco, she felt a little uneasy. 2 nights ago, Lu Lan was really taken away by the police. Now, everyone in the crew knew that Gong Coco had a close relationship with President Jiang. Yesterday, Gong Coco didn't have any scenes, so she didn't come. The crew discussed Gong Coco for the whole day, and even Yu Tian was in fear. Gong Coco saw that Yu Tian's expression was different from before, but she didn't care. Instead, when she saw Gong Coco, she quickly reported something. Kiki, the company didn't send you a new manager, Gong Coco nodded. This was her own idea. Anyway, she didn't plan to continue acting, so she asked Jiang Shanke to help her. Seeing that Gong Coco didn't say anything, Yu Tian didn't dare to say anything. However, she thought that ever since Gong Coco fell into the water last time, she had become very different. When she didn't speak, she always felt nervous and intimidated. After arriving at the set, the crew's attitude had a 180-degree change. Everyone was very attentive. Even Shuawen didn't dare to give her a hard time. Gong Coco didn't expect Jiang Shanka's identity to be so useful. It seemed that Jiang Shanka's status in this world was very high. Then, what should she do to repay his kindness? After filming the zither scene, the director got a good song from Gong Kiki and didn't dare to say anything. In order not to lose too badly, Shuawen found a stunt double to dance. Just like that, that scene was over. As for the result, it wasn't within Gong Kiki's consideration. Right now, she was conflicted about repaying the debt of gratitude. At this moment, Meng Xiaoqing walked over with a complicated expression. Yesterday, everyone said that Gong Coco and Jiang Shanka had an affair. Otherwise, Jiang Shanka wouldn't have helped her solve the problem so quickly. He didn't believe it and wanted to ask Gong Coco clearly. Seeing Meng Xiaoqing, Gong Coco signaled with her eyes. What's the matter? Kiki. Meng Xiaoqing hesitated. Are you and Jiang Shanka really in that kind of relationship? What kind? The kind of relationship where you're being kept. Meng Xiaoqing said this with great difficulty. To be honest, if the other party was Jiang Shanka, even if she was being kept, there would still be many people chasing after her like a flock of ducks. Kept? Gong Coco frowned. Her intuition wasn't a good word. She corrected, no, he and I are husband and wife. Husband and wife. Meng Xiaoqing felt that Gong Coco was crazy. Who was Jiang Shanka? He wouldn't marry a third-rate artist as his wife. Seeing Meng Xiaoqing's big reaction, Gong Coco was a little puzzled. Why are you so anxious? Can't you be husband and wife? Meng Xiaoqing saw that her expression was sincere and didn't seem to be lying. His heart suddenly ached. Since you're his wife, why did you provoke me in the first place? He gritted his teeth as he asked. Gong Coco cursed silently. She had almost forgotten that Meng Xiaoqing was the person her predecessor liked. She touched her chin and said softly. I only got married to him 2 days ago. Contract husband and wife counts, I guess. And it was a secret marriage. This should make Meng Xiaoqing feel better, right? She didn't want Meng Xiaoqing to have a bad impression of her predecessor. She felt that her predecessor really liked Meng Xiaoqing. The reason why she wanted to marry Jiang Shanka was probably because she wanted to have someone to rely on. Meng Xiaoqing's face turned pale. His thick eyebrows were tightly knitted together, but he couldn't express the frustration in his heart. He looked at Gong Coco solemnly and turned to leave. What should he do if he didn't leave? Should he say that she changed her heart too quickly? He had just started to have feelings for her, and she turned her back on him. Wouldn't that be asking for humiliation? Gong Coco was a little confused, but she didn't think too much about it. She wasn't someone who would go to a dead end. Although she was heartless, she was still happy to be at ease. But just because she didn't look for trouble, it didn't mean that trouble wouldn't look for her. On the way back, Gong Coco's car was blocked by a group of people. Yu Tian was so frightened that she hurriedly called the police. Gong Coco blinked. She felt that this group of people was very likely the same group from yesterday. They actually dared to block people in the city. It was obvious that they were desperate. It seemed that Jiang Shanka's actions were very fast. She was afraid that Jiang Shanka wouldn't have thought that the other party would look for her. The bodyguards protecting Gong Coco didn't expect to encounter such a situation on their first day. They informed their president while protecting Gong Coco. Gong Coco, right? Come down. A person got out of the other party's car. He looked very fierce. I heard that you're Jiang Shanka's woman. Our boss wants to see you. Hurry up and come out. The passers-by around them were frightened and ran away. Gong Coco was originally thinking of how to repay Jiang Shanka. If she helped him catch this group of people, would it be considered as repayment? Anyway, those people from yesterday were all caught in one fell swoop. No one knew that she knew martial arts. This way, she could easily catch the other party's leader. Therefore, Gong Coco ignored the bodyguards and walked down. Seeing that she was obedient, the other party was very satisfied. Let's go. Our boss is still waiting for you. With that said, more than 10 people got out of the car. They looked like they would snatch Gong Coco if she didn't leave. Chapter 899. The bodyguard wanted to stop them, but Gong Coco held him back timidly. She pretended to be very scared and said, "Don't fight. They have a lot of people. You guys go look for Jiang Shanke. I'll go with them. I believe they won't do anything to me, right? This hero. My husband is very rich." That person originally wanted to hit her, but seeing that Gong Coco was so sensible, he laughed along. Yes, our boss is very protective of women. Someone like you, our boss will definitely not hurt you. With that, the group of people laughed lecherously. But the bodyguard was unwilling to agree, but Gong Coco's tone deepened. Didn't Jiang Shanke ask all of you to listen to me? Seeing that Gong Coco had said so, the bodyguards couldn't say anything else. They were restrained by the other party and watched as Gong Coco went with them willingly. The bodyguards were angry. They had thought that Gong Coco was very smart because of her good looks. Who knew that she was so naive? However, the other party had more than 100 people, and they couldn't stop them. This time, this group of people had turned out in full force. They had no choice. The police had sealed off their place. When Jiang Shanke went to the company today, he went around suppressing their remaining strongholds, as if he wanted to kill them all. Jiang Sun had no choice. In the end, he made up his mind and went all out to capture Jiang Shanke's woman. The reason why they knew about the relationship between Gong Coco and Jiang Shanke was because of the incident at the mall yesterday. Gong Coco pretended to be timid the whole way. Her phone was snatched away by them and her hands were tied up. Her eyes were red and she looked like she wanted to cry but didn't dare to. The person who came to capture her even wanted to pinch her face, but she avoided him. He wasn't angry and said, "Although this woman isn't very smart, she's really good looking. Her skin is really amazing." His subordinate said, "Isn't that so? If it wasn't the best, how could Jiang Shanke be tempted by it?" Gong Coco was disgusted by their approach because the smell was too strong and their expressions were wretched. It was obvious that they were up to no good. Therefore, she lowered her head and allowed them to lead her to a remote, abandoned building after a series of twists and turns. "This is Jiang Shanke's woman. She's quite good-looking." Gong Coco was pushed into a door and saw Jiang Sun at a glance. He was nearly 40 years old. Although he was good-looking and seemed to be very amiable when he smiled, Gong Coco could still feel the evil intentions behind his eyes, which proved that he was a bad person. Hearing his boss's words, the man who brought her here quickly said, "This woman is an actress. Although he's in his 20s, he looks like a minor." Jiang Sun nodded. "Inform Jiang Shanke that his woman is in my hands. You're not allowed to call the police. Come see me alone. Otherwise, he can just wait to collect his corpse." His subordinate was a little hesitant. Would someone like Jiang Shanke lower his head for a woman? Jiang Sun sneered. "I don't dare to speak for others, but in the Jiang family, every generation is famous for being infatuated. Have you seen Jiang Shanke with a woman? This is his first woman. He can't bear to part with her." Gong Coco kept her head down as she listened. She felt that it was a little unbelievable. In her era, if a man in his 20s did not have a woman, he was either too poor, ugly, or physically handicapped. But in this era, where the culture was so open, Jiang Shanke still did not have a woman. Although she felt that it was very strange, she was more secretly delighted. It was as if she was very happy that Jiang Shanke only had her. The subordinate felt that it made sense and hurriedly left. Jiang Sun asked the others to leave, leaving only 2 of his trusted subordinates. Then, he looked at Gong Coco, who had been silent all this time. "Little girl, are you frightened?" Gong Coco looked up at him. "Were you the one who sent people to kill Jiang Shanke yesterday?" Jiang Sun saw her lively eyes and his eyes lit up. "So what if I was? I didn't expect him to be so lucky to escape." Gong Coco looked like a curious baby and asked again, "I heard that the law in this world is very strict. A life for a life. What kind of deep hatred do you have between the 2 of you? How did it come to this?" Jiang Sun originally wanted to say that she wouldn't understand even if he told her. But seeing Gong Coco's curious and adorable look, Jiang Sun's patience suddenly increased a lot. He simply said, "If you want to blame someone, blame Jiang Shanke. The land in East City has always been the most important business place for my Black Flag gang. Who doesn't know that that piece of land is a no-man's land? There are so many big shots in Haitian City who have circled around East City. But Jiang Shanke is so rich that he bought all the land in East City, saying that he wants to build a school. Since he's cutting off my path to wealth, I can only send him to his death." Gong Coco nodded, not fully understanding. In other words, Jiang Shanke had provoked this group of outlaws because of business matters. The business they were talking about was probably not something good. What does East City do? Although she had a subjective understanding, Gong Coco still wanted to know more before deciding whether to make a move. Jiang Sun sat on the chair and smiled deeply, not saying anything. A shirtless man beside him laughed and said, "Our business is naturally good business." Another short man said with a lecherous smile, "If a little girl like you goes to our place, I'm afraid that you won't be able to walk when you come out." Ha 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 ha. Although Gong Coco did not understand the meaning of the last sentence, she knew the first sentence. Her mother had once told her that those things that made people feel as if they were falling into the clouds were the most poisonous things in the world. If it was a small matter, it could cause the destruction of a family. If it was a serious matter, it could even bring disaster to an entire country. These people who were selling such things were definitely not good people. Thinking of this, Gong Coco revealed a look of righteous indignation. She no longer had any psychological burden for what she was about to do. The shirtless man sized up Gong Coco without blinking. "Boss, look at this girl. She looks like a virgin." "Virgin?" Jiang Sun looked carefully. For people like them who had seen countless women, they could tell at a glance that Gong Coco was different from others. He smiled and raised his eyebrows. "You don't say, she does look like a virgin. Could it be that Jiang Shanke can't do it? There's such a great beauty beside him, and he can't do her." Gong Kiki was confused when she heard this. Jiang Sun slowly stood up and said anxiously, "What are you talking about? If that's the case, you guys go out first. Anyway, it'll take a while for Jiang Shanke to come. I'll help him open his woman's bud first." Then, the 2 confidants revealed lecherous smiles. "Boss, don't forget about us when there's good stuff." Jiang Sun sneered. "Don't worry. I won't forget about you guys. When I'm done, you guys can do it together." Ha ha ha. "Thank you, boss. Thank you, boss." Chapter 900. Gong Coco tilted her head and watched the 2 men walk out expectantly. She had a feeling that they were going to do something bad to her, but she didn't know what it was. Her blank look pleased Jiang Sun. He looked like a human at first, but when he stared at her now, he was as cold as a snake. Amazing. I can't believe there's such a pure woman like you in the modern world. No wonder Jiang Shanke likes you. I wonder if he'll still like you after we fuck you. Fuck you. Gong Coco frowned. Her instincts told her that it wasn't a good word. Yes. Jiang Sun took a few steps towards Gong Coco. He looked impatient. It's very comfortable. I guarantee that you'll fall in love with this feeling after I fuck you. As he spoke, he started to take off his clothes. Gong Coco's hands were tied and she looked like a pushover. Moreover, Jiang Sun was a good fighter himself. Why would a weak woman like Gong Coco be attracted to him? Gong Coco's expression changed when she saw that he was about to take off his pants after taking off his shirt. You're going to take off your pants in front of me. For the past few days, although Jiang Shanke had some thoughts, he had never exposed his body in front of her. Even when he hugged her to sleep, he was wearing pajamas. But this person, he dared to take off his pants. Jiang Sun was stunned because she sounded too surprised. He laughed. How can I do it if I don't take off my pants? Don't worry, I'll make you feel good. Gong Keek's eyes widened as she uttered each word slowly. Brother said that all men who take off their pants in front of me should be beaten to death. Jiang Sun laughed exaggeratedly. Your brother is really interesting. Yes, he should be beaten to death. If he's not beaten to death, the wolf will eat the little sheep. As he spoke, he took off his pants with a lewd smile and pounced on Gong Coco. But in the next second, Gong Coco suddenly disappeared. Jiang Sun was shocked. A huge force came from behind and he was kicked to the ground. As his pants were down to his knees, he couldn't get up immediately. Just as he was about to call for help, a large ball of hemp rope was stuffed into his mouth. He tried to grab it with his hands, but his hands were twisted in a strange position. This series of actions only took a few seconds. Jiang Sun was sweating from the pain. Only then did he realize that what he had brought back was not a little lamb, but a man-eating tiger. He looked at Gong Coco in horror, as if he was looking at a monster. Gong Coco rubbed her wrist and kicked him angrily. How dare you take off your pants in front of me? How dare you take off your pants? As he spoke, his anger was still not appeased, and he kicked him again. Kick the other party into a shrimp. There was a reason why Gong Coco reacted so strongly. After Gong Yimo and Gong Dai left, Gong Qiyu, as the older brother, shouldered the heavy burden of taking care of his younger sister. Especially when his younger sister was 15 years old and became more and more beautiful, Gong Qiyu was simply worried sick. How could he let his younger sister know? All these years, his younger sister was either staying in the palace or running around with Qiuxingfeng. Qiuxingfeng's mind was only 10 years old. His younger sister followed him, and even if she went out to see the world, she still looked ignorant. It was really worrying. Should he find a nanny in the palace to explain erotic pictures to his younger sister? Gong Qiyu blushed. His younger sister was not married yet. It was a bit premature to do that. In the end, he decided to find the old palace maid to tell his younger sister about the difference between men and women. In the end, Gong Coco listened carefully on the surface, but in fact, her eyes never left the book in her hand. Seeing that Gong Coco was ignorant, the old palace maid directly started from the most basic things, such as following the father at home, following the husband after marriage, following the son after the husband's death, and some nonsense about men and women not touching each other. How could Gong Coco listen? Seeing that many methods were not effective, Gong Qiyu sighed. Fortunately, because the palace people in Daiyu state worshipped Gong Yimo and Gong Dai very much, and also respected the children they left behind, the palace was peaceful. No one dared to be disrespectful to Gong Coco, and no one dared to do anything excessive to her, so Gong Coco was innocent until she was 18 years old. Gong Qiyu couldn't do anything to his younger sister. Seeing that she had no intention of being enlightened at all, he just let her be. Anyway, his younger sister had him in the palace, Qiuxingfeng when she went out, and the prince consort when she got married. However, he was worried that his younger sister would be taken advantage of without them knowing, so Gong Qiyu repeatedly warned her that if any man took off his pants and exposed his lower body in front of her, except for her prince consort, she would directly kill everyone else. He would bear all the consequences. He also wanted Gong Coco to swear that she would do as she was told before letting her go. Gong Coco touched her chin and looked at the man lying on the ground, a fierce light flashing in her eyes. She was no longer a princess in this world. It seemed a little overboard to kill someone, but letting him go would violate her oath. What should she do? Looking at Jiang Sun's smooth butt, Gong Coco took the coat he put on the chair and covered it with it in disgust. Then, she stepped on it fiercely. Jiang Sun raised his head, the veins on his neck bursting. He let out a hoarse scream, and his eyes were about to pop out. However, because his mouth was stuffed, no one outside could hear him. Gong Coco stepped on his butt several times as if it was not enough. As she stepped, she said, "Who asked you to be disobedient? Who asked you to take off your pants? Let's see if you can still take them off." One had to know that Jiang Sun was on a concrete floor, and Gong Coco's strength was not proportional to her appearance. One could imagine the pain. Jiang Shanka was about to go crazy. Although Gong Coco was very powerful, how could she be so bold? She dared to enter the tiger's den alone. He rushed over with his men and ignored their warnings. He called the police and got the police to surround the place. Since the necklace around Gong Keek's neck was a locator, Jiang Shanka was able to easily locate her location. Without hesitation, he began to snatch her away. The two men guarding the door were still wondering why there was no movement inside. Logically speaking, the little girl should be crying and shouting. However, after a while, there was a noise coming from downstairs. The two men were shocked. One of them's phone rang, and he quickly picked it up. "Oh no, Brother Hu. The police are here." When Brother Hu heard this, he immediately knocked on the door. "Boss. Damn it, the police are here." Jiang Shanka dared to call the police. Jiang Sun felt like he was about to die. A man's most vulnerable part had been in close contact with the rough floor. Both of his hands were fractured. He lay on the ground, unable to get up. With tears and saliva all over the floor, Gong Coco was still angry. This person did not do anything good in the past. He deserved to be bullied by her. The people outside heard no sound from inside and felt that something was wrong. Just as they were about to rush in, they saw the door being kicked open. Jiang Shanka stood at the door with a cold look in his eyes, as if he wanted to eat them up. The people behind him quickly rushed in and aimed their guns at them. "Don't move. Put your hands up." The two men had no choice but to surrender. However, they were in despair. They were done for. Chapter 901. Why didn't Jiang Shanka play by the rules? Did he not care about that woman at all? But the truth was, Jiang Shanka pushed the two of them aside and kicked the last door open. In the dust, Jiang Shanka's anxious expression froze. The scene in front of him seemed to have overturned his understanding. Because it was an ordinary narrow door and Jiang Shanka was blocking it, the people outside could not see what was happening inside. Jiang Shanka hurriedly walked in and closed the door with a bang. And in front of him, Gong Coco withdrew her domineering foot from Jiang Sun in embarrassment and rubbed it on the ground. She did not expect Jiang Shanka to arrive so quickly. She had not caught her yet, Jiang Shanke looked at Jiang Sun, who was lying on the ground, not knowing if she was dead or alive. He wiped the sweat off his forehead. God knew that he had been worried the entire way. Although Gong Coco was very powerful, she was so innocent. Would something happen to her? But the scene in front of him told him that he was thinking too much. If he had come a little later, Jiang Sun would have died. He glanced at Jiang Sun and realized that Jiang Sun had taken off her pants. It seemed that she wanted to do something to Gong Coco. But he would never have dreamed that Gong Coco knew martial arts. His cold expression was very scary. Gong Coco could not help but wonder if she had done something wrong. Or rather, she should not have messed with him so badly. Jiang Shanke was still angry at first, but seeing that she was fine and looked frightened, his heart softened instantly. He shouted, "Come over here." Gong Coco replied with an "oh" and walked over to him obediently. She was a little confused as to why she was so obedient. Was it because he was the first person in the world who knew her secret, or was it because he was as scary as her brother when he was angry? When she was 2 steps away from him, Jiang Shanke finally could not hold it in and pulled her into his arms. "Silly. You silly girl. Who asked you to interfere in this matter? Since you know martial arts, you just need to protect yourself. Do you know how scared I am of you acting so rashly?" Gong Coco was hugged tightly and felt a little confused. "You don't have to worry about me. I'm very strong." Although her kung fu was only average in her previous world, in this world, her kung fu was already very powerful. Even if there were very powerful weapons here, she could still run away if she couldn't beat them. Jiang Shanke was furious. "I'm just afraid that you'll be cheated. Deceived?" Gong Coco asked in bewilderment. She felt that she was still very smart. Jiang Shanke released her, looked into her eyes, and pointed to the man on the ground. "Men are bad. In order to achieve their goals, those Shoa will come up with any lies. Even if you know martial arts, you don't understand the sinister nature of people's hearts. I'm still worried about you, but fortunately, you're more sensible than I thought." He heaved a sigh of relief and couldn't help but ask, "How did you become enlightened?" "Enlightened?" Gong Coco looked at Jiang Sun on the ground. "You're asking me why I hit him?" Jiang Shanke nodded and hugged her waist. He suddenly smiled. "Did you listen to what I said before?" He had told her not to let anyone near her. Gong Coco opened her mouth but chose to be honest in the end. "Brother said it." Jiang Shanke was stunned and then asked, "What did your brother say?" Gong Coco said in a firm tone, "Brother said that other than the prince consort, all men who take off their pants and expose their lower body in front of me will be beaten to death." However, she quickly added, "But I didn't beat him to death. I only taught him a lesson." Jiang Shanke's expression cracked. He didn't expect that his brother-in-law in the other world would teach Kiki such a thing without saying anything. Looking at Jiang Sun who was lying on the ground, he could imagine what had happened to his lower body. If he had done something to Gong Coco back then, Jiang Shanke felt a lingering fear. He didn't expect that his gentlemanly act would save his life. After recovering from his shock, Jiang Shanke told her very sternly. "Kiki, prince consort means husband. I'm your husband now, so I'm your prince consort. You won't treat me like this, right?" Gong Coco had a strange expression on her face. "But we're a contractual couple. That's fake, right?" Jiang Shanke pursed his lips and smiled. "Soon, it won't be." Gong Coco was confused. "Then what are we?" "We're a real couple." "Silly girl." He leaned his forehead against Gong Coco's and sighed softly. He felt his heart slowly settle down. "Although we haven't known each other for a long time, when I was on my way here, I kept thinking about what I would do if something happened to you. Just thinking about it made me lose my rationality. Gong Coco's heart warmed. She smiled sweetly and looked up at him. If something really happened to me, would you still want me? She glanced at Jiang Sun on the ground. He just said that you won't like me anymore after he has sex with me. Is that really the case? What nonsense are you talking about? Jiang Shanke glared at her. He felt that his calm and steady CEO aura was about to be destroyed by this little girl. What a silly girl, he sighed helplessly. Then, he was defeated by Gong Coco's thirsty gaze. If that day really comes, I'll still like you. I'll like you from the first time I saw you. It's strange that my heart would be stolen by a little fool. He pinched Gong Coco's nose helplessly. Gong Coco forgot to resist. She just stared at him blankly. She didn't know why, but when Jiang Shanke said that he liked her, her heart kept bubbling. Her chest felt warm and swollen, as if she wanted him to continue saying it. She wanted him to tell her that he liked her over and over again. Say it again. Gong Coco stared at him without blinking. Her face was full of anticipation. Upon hearing this, Jiang Shanke smiled and teased her. Then will you marry me? Gong Coco frowned and bargained, say it again and I'll tell you. Jiang Shanke couldn't do anything about it. He could only say it again in a gentle voice. I like you. He saw Gong Coco's eyes suddenly light up like two bright little stars. He couldn't help but laugh. I like you. I only like you. Little one, do you like me? Before Gong Coco could say anything, Jiang Sun suddenly moaned from the ground. This made the two of them realize that there was still a living person here. Perhaps she could still be saved. Jiang Shanke then remembered that this scumbag hadn't been dealt with yet. Moreover, there was a large group of police officers waiting for him outside, but he was flirting here. Thinking of this, the thick-skinned CEO couldn't help but blush. Thus, he coughed and said, "This isn't the place to talk, so you don't have time to think. Tell me, do you like me?" Chapter 902. Gong Coco's face was burning. She turned her head and said shamelessly, "Since this is not the place to talk, let's talk somewhere else." With that, she wanted to slip away. However, Jiang Shanke, who had quick reflexes, hugged her from behind. "Little girl, don't even think about running away. You belong to me for the rest of your life." Gong Coco's cheeks were red. How did she become someone else's? She was a princess. Even if she had a prince consort, it should be the prince consort who listened to her. As she thought of that, she raised her chin defiantly. Where I come from, the prince consort also has to listen to the princess's orders. Jiang Shanke carried Gong Coco up in a good-natured manner. All right, I'll listen to you. Princess, let's go home. Gong Coco thought of the many people outside and shyly wanted to hide in Jiang Shanke's arms. However, she was a princess. Why should she hide? Hence, Gong Coco calmly allowed Jiang Shanke to hug her. She even found a comfortable position in his arms and openly enjoyed Jiang Shanke's service. Her intimacy put Jiang Shanke in a good mood. He opened the door, ignoring the strange gazes of the police officers, and said in a deep voice, "The criminal leader, Jiang Sun, is inside. My wife is in shock, so I won't go to the police station for the time being. When my wife is fine, I will go to the police station to cooperate with the police investigation." The leading police officer heaved a sigh of relief and hurriedly expressed that it was fine. The group of people watched as Jiang Shanke carried Gong Coco away. This should be true love, right? Who would have thought that the great CEO Jiang would be so worried about a person one day? When Gong Coco returned home, it was already late at night. Her hand was still injured. She had removed the bandage during the filming in the day, but now it was bandaged again after the medicine was applied. Jiang Shanke bathed her seriously. Thinking of what had happened before, he still had some lingering fear. Kiki, if I accidentally took off my pants in front of you, would you do the same to me? There was news from the police that Jiang Sun's dick was crippled. He shuddered when he heard the news. Then, he got someone to suppress the news. Gong Coco was playing with the water when she heard this. I think so. I swore. However, since you don't look like a bad person, I might be gentler to you. Jiang Shanke wiped off his non-existent cold sweat. He was very glad that he had held back before. Speaking of this, Gong Coco frowned. That man looks very bad, but I'm not a princess here. If I cripple him, will it bring you trouble? Jiang Shanke smiled and told her not to worry. Jiang Sun has harmed countless girls in the eastern city. It's good that he's crippled. Kiki has helped the people get rid of evil and should be rewarded. Why would he cause trouble for me? Gong Coco heaved a sigh of relief and smiled sweetly. Jiang Shanke caressed her face lovingly. He thought that even if she really got into trouble, he would be willing to help her deal with the aftermath, right? Moreover, he was right. Gong Coco had indeed helped the people by crippling Jiang Sun. Back then, the eastern city had always been in a foul atmosphere because of him. All kinds of drug dealing, entertainment venues, and casinos were concentrated there. It could be said that it was a malignant tumor in Hayden City. As for him, he had purposely bought the entire East City in order to uproot this underground force and build a school at the same time. It could be considered as doing something meaningful and establishing an image. He had not expected that it would provoke the revenge of this group of desperados. However, they would receive the most severe punishment. However, Gong Coco was still a little disappointed. Jiang Shanke had acted too quickly. She had not caught Jiang Sun yet and he had already arrived. This made her feel helpless. It seemed that she could only find another opportunity to repay his kindness in the future. Jiang Shanke felt a little uneasy when he saw her burying her head in thought. He knew very well how naive his little girl was. What she was thinking was definitely not normal. It seemed that he had to speed up his teaching. Cough. Kiki, are you sleepy? If not, let's go watch TV. Gong Coco was originally a little sleepy because it was almost time for her biological clock to sleep. However, when she heard that she could watch TV, she became excited. She liked all the new things in the modern world. It was just that she had been too busy recently and did not have the time. Not only did she have to cram some basic knowledge to avoid giving herself away in front of outsiders, but she also had to film. Hence, she had been itching to watch TV and computers for a long time. However, she had been putting on airs and was unwilling to say anything. Seeing that she liked it, Jiang Shanke carried Gong Coco out and wiped her body with an oversized bath towel. He was almost 10 years older than Gong Coco. However, ever since she came, Jiang Shanke felt that he seemed to have become much younger and more patient. This youth was not only in terms of age, but also in terms of mentality. It was as if a pool of stagnant water had been broken and gradually became clear. After changing Gong Coco into the silk pajamas that he had carefully chosen, Jiang Shanke carried Gong Coco to the bedroom to watch TV. Perhaps it was because Gong Kik's skin was too delicate and easily injured, or perhaps it was because she was too light and didn't weigh anything at all, or perhaps it was because her body was too soft and comfortable to hug. In short, Jiang Shanke was already infatuated with this feeling. He liked to carry Gong Coco everywhere like a young boy. He could not wait to be separated from her for even a second. Gong Coco was also happy to enjoy his thoughtfulness. When they reached the bedroom, the oversized TV screen was much better than the movie theater. After turning it on, Jiang Shanka thought for a while and played a movie that he had specially found. Gong Coco was very curious about things like TV. After people filmed a movie, they could record it and then play it in every household. How did they do it? Then how did the recorded scenes end up on TV? There were too many questions that she wanted to know. Gong Coco even snickered and thought that if Daiyu State also had such a TV, there would be much less scheming in the backyard. However, she soon felt that something was wrong because this movie, it was a little indescribable. Jiang Shanka carried her and sat on the bed to watch it. It was a movie that he had carefully selected. It was not too erotic, but it had the right amount of meat. He had to educate Gong Coco about gender. Although Gong Coco's performance today when she defeated Jiang Sun proved that she was not a silly girl who could be easily fooled, there was no harm in teaching her more. Ahem, to put it simply, he did not want Gong Coco to think that there was something that should not be growing on him. The atmosphere was very awkward. Jiang Shanka's body temperature was very hot. Through her thin clothes, Gong Coco's heart started to beat faster. She tried her best to focus on the TV. When she saw the girl seducing a man out of a nightclub, she was curious about what she was going to do. In the end, the two of them were kissing in a dark alley. Gong Coco covered her eyes with both hands. Chapter 903. Wait a minute. Why was she covering her eyes? There was a kissing scene between Meng Xiaoqing and Xue Wen on set. Why did she feel nothing when she saw it? Why was she so shy now? Actually, it was because there were many people on set. Gong Coco had always viewed every action during filming as a necessary task. Moreover, when they were filming the kissing scene, they would request for retakes from time to time. Sometimes, there would be positioning, which made the scene less impactful and exciting. However, the scene in front of her was very smooth. In addition, the actor's bold actions made Gong Coco blush suspiciously. Even her toes curled up shyly. Jiang Shanka was a little moved at first. Watching this kind of film with the girl he liked was a little challenging. However, when he saw Gong Coco's performance, he felt that he was doing the right thing. He should let this little girl understand the difference between men and women. Although Gong Coco covered her eyes, she could hear the faint panting and sucking sounds of a man and a woman. Her face turned even redder. She didn't dare to lean her back against Jiang Shanka and secretly curled up under the blanket. How could Jiang Shanka allow her to run away? With a wave of his hand, he pulled Gong Kiki back and hugged her in his arms again. Gong Coco stuttered and didn't dare to look at him. That. Why you're poking me, her voice was pitifully soft. Jiang Shanka raised his eyebrows and said shamelessly, what do you think is poking you? Gong Coco turned to look at him in confusion. Was it not a tumor? The main thing was that when Jiang Sun took off his pants today, she had already closed her eyes, so she didn't know that there were some things that all men had. Jiang Shanka seemed to understand the meaning in Gong Coco's eyes. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry and told her in a low voice. Kiki. The biggest difference between men and women isn't their breasts. Anyway, you'll see when you continue watching. Upon hearing this, Gong Coco glanced at the television again. However, at this moment, besides kissing passionately, the two people on the television were also taking off their clothes. Slap. She had a feeling that something terrible was about to happen. Gong Coco burrowed under the blanket and said in a panic, I don't want to watch anymore. I'm going to sleep. Jiang Shanka dug the ostrich-like Gong Coco out of the quilt. No. You're not allowed to sleep until you're done. Gong Coco felt that something was wrong when she heard his voice. Her whole body went soft, and Jiang Shanka pulled her back. Furthermore, she seemed to be anticipating something, even she herself didn't know. Under Jiang Shanka's insistence, Gong Coco reluctantly turned her head, just in time to see the male actor about to take off his pants. "Ah! Don't look. He's about to take off his pants." Actually, this kind of film wouldn't be real, but he filmed it very well. It was enough to teach a newbie like Gong Coco some knowledge. However, Gong Coco remembered her brother's request. She couldn't look. Therefore, she closed her eyes tightly, and no matter what Jiang Shanka said, she wouldn't look. Jiang Shanka had no choice but to lower his head and embrace her, kissing her lips. The familiar throbbing came, and Gong Coco felt that she couldn't breathe again. A man and a woman alone in a room was taboo. Moreover, dry wood and raging fire. Bah! Moreover, Jiang Shanka was an old man who had been lonely for a long time, and he couldn't resist temptation. Poor newbie Gong Coco. Her mind was blank, and she was instantly pushed down on the bed by Jiang Shanka, forcefully pressed down by him. Gong Coco's body was tense. Jiang Shanka could feel her body trembling, but she didn't push him away. This could only mean one thing. This little thing with no common sense accepted him in her heart. Therefore, Jiang Shanka kissed her even more gently, trying to provoke the primitive feelings in her body to dance with him. He told himself not to be anxious. Delicious things had to be eaten bite by bite to taste them, and it was the same for her. He told Gong Coco in a hoarse voice, "Relax." In the very ambiguous voice of the film, Gong Coco's body was boiling hot, but she followed his words and tried to relax herself. She closed her eyes tightly, and her hand that was tightly gripping Jiang Shanka's arm gradually loosened. Jiang Shanka smiled and patiently traced her lips. In the end, he said bewitchingly, "Open your mouth." At this moment, his voice was like a seductive charm. Why? Gong Coco heard her own timid voice, but what she didn't know was how coquettish her voice sounded to the man. Jiang Shanka looked at her moist eyes and suppressed his desire to devour her. He chuckled helplessly. "If you don't want to watch, I'll have to teach you myself. These are things that you have to understand. Your brother warned you to teach you these principles. However, it's not convenient for him to teach you in detail, but I can." Gong Coco's head was dizzy. She roughly understood that he was going to teach her what was playing on the television. It was so scary. Gong Coco had an idea and said pitifully, "Is it? If I watch obediently, you won't, press down on me like this?" Although kissing felt good, when Jiang Shanka pressed down on her, she felt like she was going to be devoured by him. This feeling made her heart palpitate and a little scared. Jiang Shanka raised his eyebrows and thought to himself that this was fine too. He wanted her to be mentally prepared, in case she touched something strange and was abused by him like how she treated Jiang Sun. After Jiang Shanka got up, Gong Coco heaved a sigh of relief, but at the same time, she felt a little disappointed. She didn't understand what kind of disappointment she felt. Then, she watched as Jiang Shanka fast-forwarded the video. He was looking for a scene that could make her more sensible. Then, he held Gong Coco in his arms and watched, constantly checking if her eyes were closed. Under his compulsion, Gong Coco finally finished watching all the scenes with a red face. How should she put it? Gong Coco felt like something had overturned her 18 years of understanding. So, this was what it meant to be a man and woman dual cultivation. It was a little different from what she had imagined. She sneaked a peek at Jiang Shanka's indescribable part. That meant that it wasn't caused by illness. It was something that he was born with. Men were so pitiful. They had to carry such a hard thing with them. It was so inconvenient to move around. Jiang Shanka strangely guessed her thoughts. Under the ambiguous light, Jiang Shanka lifted Gong Coco's little chin and rubbed it. "Silly girl, that part doesn't get hard often." Gong Coco was shocked. How did Jiang Shanke know what she was thinking? Jiang Shanke chuckled. Isn't it because your thoughts are too easy to guess? He sighed, then leaned forward and whispered in her ear. Here, it will only change when you see someone you like. Gong Coco didn't understand at first, but then her face suddenly turned red. Jiang Shanke was telling her that he liked her. Chapter 904. Jiang Shanke was pleased to see that Gong Coco understood him instantly. However, Gong Coco suddenly pecked him on the lips. She said in a soft and cute voice. I like you too. At that moment, it was as if something exploded in Jiang Shanke's mind. He could only see Gong Coco's blushing face and her overly bright eyes. His heart was filled with sweetness. He even felt that his life was complete at that moment. He was very emotional as he pressed Gong Coco under his body and kissed her again. This time, Gong Coco was very cooperative. Jiang Shanke experienced the feeling of floating in the clouds. The more the two were in love, the more they took off their clothes. Jiang Shanke was even looking forward to it. Perhaps after the verbal lesson, he could now, personally teach her. Just as he was about to take off his pants, Gong Coco suddenly kicked him to the ground. Jiang Shanke sat on the carpet, his eyes wide open. Gong Coco instantly covered her face in shame. Sorry. I can't change it at the moment. So she kicked Jiang Shanke away reflexively. Jiang Shanke's heart was about to break down, but after being kicked, he finally calmed down. They hadn't known each other for long, so it was normal for Coco to reject him. However, there was no doubt that she liked him. As for the rest, naturally, there would be a day when the conditions were right. After Jiang Shanke comforted himself, he climbed onto the bed awkwardly. Gong Coco felt that she had done something wrong, so she didn't dare to look at him. Jiang Shanke smiled and sighed. Little brat, you're quite strong. Gong Coco lowered her head even more. Would Jiang Shanke think that she was rude because she knew martial arts? However, in the next second, she was gently hugged by Jiang Shanke. But this is also good. If you're stronger, I can worry less. Gong Coco smiled sweetly and let Jiang Shanke hug her. She whispered, I didn't do it on purpose, yes, I know. Jiang Shanke tucked her under the quilt and said gently, I was too anxious, it's not your fault. Be good, go to sleep. I'll wait for you. Only then did Gong Coco fall asleep. It was a good night's sleep. Amidst these pink bubbles, the two of them spent a sweet month together. Gong Keek's scenes were almost done. On the day of the end of filming, the director specially treated them to a meal. Gong Coco thought that this might be her first and last time acting, so it was still very memorable. Therefore, she gladly went. She gave Jiang Shanke a call and then went to the place they had agreed on. The place was very secluded and many people with status went in and out, so there was no need to worry about paparazzi following them. When Gong Coco arrived, almost everyone else had arrived. As she was only acquainted with many of the crew members, Gong Coco didn't put in much effort. After all, they probably wouldn't see each other in the future. After the meal, everyone went to another room to sing and drink. Gong Coco was forced to drink a lot, but she had internal energy and the alcohol was instantly forced out of her body. She was fine, so she didn't refuse anyone. However, Meng Xiaoqing seemed to have drunk a little too much. Gong Coco noticed that Shuawen had been taking care of him, but he seemed to be in pain. In the end, everyone had drunk a little too much. Gong Coco felt that the room reeked of alcohol, so she used the excuse of going to the bathroom to leave. However, not long after she rested outside, she saw Shuawen helping Meng Xiaoqing into a room. This was actually very normal, but what was abnormal was that Meng Xiaoqing's face was a little strange. He seemed to be unconscious and his entire body was pressing down on Shuawen. Speaking of which, Shuawen had been living a miserable life recently. In the past, she had only ordered Lu Yun to deal with Gong Coco a few times, but nothing had happened. However, recently, her sugar daddy had inexplicably abandoned her. She didn't manage to get a single spokesperson for a few big brands. The role that she was originally confident of getting was inexplicably taken over by someone else. Only then did she know that she was being targeted. Recently, the only person she had offended was Gong Coco. It was obvious that it was the man that Gong Coco had hooked up with. She had no choice but to set her sights on Meng Xiaoqing. Not only was he an A-list male celebrity, but his family background was also not bad. Although he was not as good as those big shots, he was a good stock with potential. Previously, Meng Xiaoqing was a little interested in her. However, ever since Gong Coco seemed to have changed into a different person, Meng Xiaoqing had set his sights on Gong Coco. Therefore, she planned to use today's opportunity to go all out and give Meng Xiaoqing a strong dose of medicine. After placing him on the prepared bed, Meng Xiaoqing had regained some of his senses. At this moment, he was dizzy and Shuawen was setting him on fire. He bit his tongue and frowned as he spoke. "Go away. Don't touch me." Shuawen didn't expect Meng Xiaoqing to still be rational at this time. However, it didn't matter. Meng Xiaoqing was famous in the industry for being loyal. After tonight, no matter how unwilling he would have to take responsibility. Meng Xiaoqing felt a deep sense of danger when he felt that someone was stripping his clothes. He suddenly pushed Shuawen away. "Go away. Go away." When Shuawen heard this, she looked a little embarrassed. She gritted her teeth. Just as she was about to do something to Meng Xiaoqing on the bed again, a soft female voice sounded coldly. "He's not willing. Are you still going to force him?" Shuawen widened her eyes and looked over. She had locked the door. How did Gong Coco get in? Gong Coco was squatting on the window. Luckily, this was the second floor. It wasn't too exaggerated for her to climb up, right? Gong Coco glanced at Meng Xiaoqing. His condition doesn't seem right. Did you buy fake medicine? Shuawen was especially afraid of Gong Coco now, especially since she had caught her red-handed. She glared at Gong Coco and bluffed, I don't know what you're talking about. I just saw that he was drunk and wanted to help him. Who told you to be a busybody and climb up the window when there's a door? With that, she opened the door and ran out in a sorry state. Gong Coco was puzzled. She didn't know what Shuawen was trying to do. But, she thought of the film she had watched a month ago. Could it be that Shuawen was plotting something against Meng Xiaoqing? Gong Coco jumped down from the window and walked towards Meng Xiaoqing. At this moment, Meng Xiaoqing was already a little delirious. In his daze, he smelled a sweet scent that seemed to have turned into an aphrodisiac. Hence, when Gong Coco walked over, she was caught off guard and was pinned down by Meng Xiaoqing. Meng Xiaoqing hugged her tightly. He knew very well what he wanted. He wanted her. Gong Coco naturally pushed him away decisively. She said coldly, Meng Xiaoqing, wake up. It's me. Chapter 905. Gong Coco. Meng Xiaoqing furrowed his brows. In the dark environment, his silhouette was illuminated by the light from outside, making him look even more handsome and alluring. Gong Coco nodded. It's me. You've been poisoned, but this poison seems to be easy to cure. Turn around, I'll cure you. Gong Coco smiled. Last time, Meng Xiaoqing had helped her keep her secret. This time, she would save him, so it was considered repaying the favor. Unexpectedly, Meng Xiaoqing looked at her little face that was illuminated by the moonlight and suddenly smiled devilishly. No need. No need to go through so much trouble. He suddenly pressed Gong Coco under his body. Those eyes that were praised by thousands of girls as the most seductive were now focused on Gong Coco. I want you. Just give it to me, and it'll be fine. He had only been drugged with an aphrodisiac. For such a thing, was there a better antidote than a woman? Moreover, this was the first time he had fallen in love with a woman who had quickly fallen out of love. Meng Xiaoqing's hot hand gently brushed Gong Coco's face. He shouldn't have been mesmerized. She clearly didn't have any feelings for him, but every time he saw her smile, it was like seeing the purest clouds in the sky blooming beside him. He would even think in annoyance, why didn't he like her in the past? She was clearly such a dazzling girl. Gong Coco was stunned for a moment before she turned around and pushed Meng Xiaoqing away. She said calmly, I have a husband, and I promised him that I won't let other men come near me. Don't come near me anymore. Gong Coco's words undoubtedly stabbed Meng Xiaoqing in the heart. He suddenly sneered at Gong Coco, his eyes filled with indescribable sarcasm. I was drugged with an aphrodisiac. I want a woman. If you don't give it to me, why did you chase Xuewen away? Gong Coco widened her eyes. Could it be that she had made a mistake? Xuewen didn't force Meng Xiaoqing, but both of them were willing. But things had already come to this, and it was too late for regrets. She coughed twice and said embarrassedly, I didn't know you wanted to cure the poison this way, but I have other ways to cure you. I'm sorry. I seem to have done something bad out of kindness. As she spoke, she suddenly reached out and took off Meng Xiaoqing's shirt. Meng Xiaoqing was already in a state where he felt like he was falling into the clouds. Gong Keek's actions startled him, and he felt an indescribable joy in his heart. But in the next second, he was disappointed. After Gong Coco took off his shirt, she let him sit on the bed while she knelt behind him. Her palms were placed on the 2 acupuncture points on his back. Soon, Meng Xiaoqing felt his body lighten and his whole body heat up. The feeling of dizziness seemed to be leaving him. Meng Xiaoqing lowered his head with a complicated expression. His will became clearer and clearer. In the end, he could not help but smile bitterly. Well, Gong Coco was such a stupid woman. If she set her mind on someone, then she would be that person. He actually thought. Gong Coco's forehead overflowed with a thin layer of sweat. She was extremely annoyed with her own recklessness. Fortunately, the poison in Meng Xiaoqing's body was not complicated. She only needed to help him circulate her energy to disperse it. However, was this debt of gratitude repaid or not? On the other side, after Jiang Shanke left the company, he went straight to pick up Gong Coco. But when he arrived, he could not find her. Gong Coco left her bag in the private room and went out by herself. Jiang Shanke was feeling inexplicably anxious. At this moment, he met the flustered Xuewen. When Xuewen saw Jiang Shanke, her eyes could not help but light up. This man was noble and steady, handsome and outstanding. It could be said that all the praises used on him were not excessive. But soon, Xuewen recognized who he was. Her expression changed instantly. Jiang Shanke. He actually came personally to pick up Gong Coco. Xuewen's heart was suddenly filled with a twisted anger. Were all those good men blind? They actually liked Gong Coco, that uncultured woman. She, Xuewen, was 10,000 times better than Gong Coco. Jiang Shanke originally did not intend to bother with Xuewen. What happened before was just a lesson for her. But Xuewen suddenly said, Young Master Jiang, are you here to look for Gong Coco? She tried her best to calm down and show her most beautiful side. Jiang Shanka nodded, but he didn't look at her. I know where Gong Coco is. Jiang Shanka suddenly turned around. Shuawen gritted her teeth and said, just now, Gong Coco and Xiao Qing drank too much. The two of them hugged each other and went into room 305. They have been in there for a long time. They should be resting now, right? When Jiang Shanka heard this, he suddenly looked at her with a sharp gaze. That gaze made Shuawen's heart skip a beat. But in the next second, Jiang Shanka quickly walked towards room 305. Shuawen's heart was still beating fast. Jiang Shanka's final gaze was so scary. It made her feel that if she did this, she might get into trouble. Okay, are you feeling better? Gong Coco asked softly as she panted. Meng Xiaoqing turned around and looked at her. When he regained his consciousness, he was more aware of the attraction Gong Coco had for him. Especially in a dark room and on an ambiguous bed. Meng Xiaoqing suddenly looked into her eyes and asked in a deep voice. Coco, you clearly like me. Why did you suddenly get married? Gong Coco did not expect him to suddenly bring this up. She was a little annoyed. But when she thought of what the previous Meng Xiaoqing had done for her, she decided to tell him. I used to like you a lot. Meng Xiaoqing's eyes lit up. Because when I was a trainee, you helped me once. It was also because of you that I came to this set. But she was already dead. Gong Kiki paused for a moment. But later on, I fell in love with Jiang Shanka. He's very good, and he treats me well. I only like him now. Now that you know about the past, just forget about it. Meng Xiaoqing suddenly became agitated. Forget. Meng Xiaoqing reached out to grab her hand and said quickly, since you cared so much about me in the past, how could you forget? Did you really forget? If you did, why did you save me just now? Why did you chase Shuawen away? Tell me. Gong Coco widened her eyes. Coco. Meng Xiaoqing suddenly pulled her into his arms. Do I really not have a chance? I just want to, like you once. The man's body was trembling slightly. Gong Coco thought that if it was the previous Gong Coco, she would be ecstatic. But she was not her. Sorry. Gong Coco said firmly. I already have Jiang Shanka. With that, she reached out to push Meng Xiaoqing. But at this moment, the door was suddenly opened. Gong Coco saw Jiang Shanka's angry eyes. That anger seemed to be able to destroy everything. What are you doing? Gong Coco quickly pushed Meng Xiaoqing away, looking shocked. Before she could finish speaking, Meng Xiaoqing put his arm around her waist and said to Jiang Shanka provocatively. We are reminiscing about old times. Chapter 906. Gong Coco was instantly enraged by the words reminisce about the past. She had nothing to reminisce about with Meng Xiaoqing. She wanted to break free from Meng Xiaoqing's grasp, but Meng Xiaoqing's stamina was very weak. As soon as Gong Kiki pulled away, he fell to the side. In order to prevent him from falling off the bed, Gong Kiki had to support him again. This scene made Jiang Shanka furious. He did not forget that Gong Coco used to like a pretty boy like Meng Xiaoqing. He strode over and snatched Gong Coco away. Meng Xiaoqing lost his support and fell onto the bed. He glared at Jiang Shanka angrily. If this man had not interfered, Coco would still like him. Mr. Meng, do you like to talk nonsense when you're drunk? Jiang Shanka sneered. His hands were tightly wrapped around Gong Coco's waist, declaring his sovereignty. This is my wife. If you dare to touch her again, you can forget about staying in the entertainment industry. If an ordinary person said that they wanted to take down Big Brother Meng Xiaoqing, it would be wishful thinking. But Jiang Shanke was the golden crown prince of the entertainment industry. He was a man of his word. Meng Xiaoqing glared at him, his hands clutching the bedsheets tightly. His whole body was trembling. But at the last moment, reason took control of him. He could not fight with Jiang Shanke. He could not. Gong Coco looked at the loneliness in his eyes and suddenly felt that he was very pitiful. If only he had realized it earlier. The Gong Coco of the past would have been so happy. Jiang Shanke saw that Gong Coco was still staring at Meng Xiaoqing with a sympathetic look. How could he let it go? He was still feeling terrible. So he carried the little girl and quickly left the scene. It was better to keep the little girl in front of him. It was too dangerous to let her wander around. In the car, Gong Coco looked conflicted. Could it be that she had done something bad out of kindness? Jiang Shanke drove with a gloomy face. The oppressive atmosphere made her a little breathless. Jiang Shanke. Jiang Shanke glared at her angrily. His ferocious look scared Gong Kiki so much that she quickly retracted her gaze and sat upright. But when he thought about it, something was wrong. Why did she have to be so obedient? She was a princess. Besides, she didn't do anything wrong. Why should he be angry with her? The more he thought about it, the more aggrieved he felt. She didn't care anymore, she was angry too. Jiang Shanke caught a glimpse of Gong Coco's silence. Furthermore, her little mouth was pouting as if she wanted to hang a string of oil bottles on it. He was both angry and amused. This little girl actually dared to be angry with him. She didn't even know how to coax him when he was angry. What a heartless little thing. But then again, he was almost 10 years older than Coco. Why was he still acting like a brat? Coco didn't know anything, so why should he be so serious with her? With that thought, his terrifying anger dissipated. Jiang Shanke freed a hand to pinch Gong Coco's face and said sternly. What? You're ignoring me after I said a few words. Didn't I say that other men aren't allowed to touch you? You made a mistake and I'm not allowed to say it. Gong Coco knew that she was in the wrong, but how could she admit it? She raised her head and said indignantly, he was poisoned. I was helping him detoxify. I didn't do anything wrong. Jiang Shanke looked at her in amusement. What kind of poison was he poisoned with? Wishful thinking poison. Gong Coco looked at him strangely. His breathing is chaotic. It seems like he was poisoned with a mild aphrodisiac. Before she could finish speaking, Jiang Shanke slammed on the brakes. Gong Coco was shocked. She now knew that it was not allowed to park in the middle of the road. Luckily, it was nighttime and there were no cars behind them. Otherwise, there would be a bunch of honking sounds. You said he was poisoned with an aphrodisiac. He stared at Gong Coco nervously, the anger in his eyes almost tangible. Damn it. Did he do anything to you? Damn it. I want to ban him. I'll ban him now. As Jiang Shanke spoke, he anxiously took out his phone to make a call. Gong Coco was so frightened that she pressed his hand down. Calm down. Calm down. He didn't do anything to me. Really? Jiang Shanke remembered Shuawen saying that they had been together for a long time. Could Meng Xiaoqing have done something and Coco didn't know? Seeing Jiang Shanke's suspicious face, Gong Coco glared at him. She pointed at the cinnabar mole on her arm and said, Do you see it? This is a cinnabar mole. Jiang Shanke had seen it before, but he didn't think much of it. Stupid. Gong Coco said proudly, This is the chastity sand. Big brother used to say that after the wedding night, this will disappear. Jiang Shanke looked at her blankly. Forgive him for being ignorant, but he had never seen such an extinct thing like the chastity sand in the modern era. He stared at the chastity sand for a long time and touched the small mole twice. His emotions finally calmed down. It seemed that Meng Xiaoqing really didn't do anything to Coco. Luckily, he didn't do anything. Otherwise, if he dared to touch his woman, he would definitely make Meng Xiaoqing suffer a fate worse than death. However, dragging it out wasn't a solution. Jiang Shanke touched his chin and suddenly said, "Coco, come with me to a place tomorrow." Gong Coco blinked and nodded obediently. She thought that Jiang Shanke was bringing her out to broaden her horizons again. In the end, when they got out of the car the next day, Gong Coco realized that Jiang Shanke wasn't bringing her to an interesting place, but to an ordinary big house. She stared at the 3 words on the door with a strange expression and read them out softly. Civil, Political, Bureau. Let's go in. Jiang Shanke walked over from behind, looking refreshed. He put his arm around Gong Coco's waist and entered. Gong Coco had always been obedient outside. Although she didn't know where this place was, there were still quite a lot of people, and they were all a man and a woman. Could it be a couple's restaurant? Gong Coco was dragged by Jiang Shanke to take a photo, sign it, and stamp it. After a series of procedures, she received 2 red booklets. Then, she realized that she and Jiang Shanke were married. There was no phoenix coronet, no wedding gown, and no 10 miles of red dowry. She was the princess of Daiyu State, and she was getting married just like that. Jiang Shanke saw that she was about to explode, so he quickly comforted her, kissed her, and said intimately, But didn't you want a grand wedding? It's in the midst of preparation. How about we have a honeymoon wedding? We'll have fun while getting married. It's time for me to give myself a long vacation." Only then did Gong Kiki snort, but her expression became happy. Even she didn't realize that she had agreed to marry Jiang Shanke so easily. She didn't hesitate at all, and everything seemed to happen naturally. However, at this moment, a woman dressed very ordinarily and a man walked out. When the man saw Gong Coco, he was stunned and then shouted, "Xiaoya! Why are you here?" Gong Coco saw this person shouting at her and thought that he had called the wrong person. However, he said excitedly, "Xiaoya, you're doing so well now." Chapter 907. This man looked very ordinary. It could be said that he was the kind of person who could not be distinguished if thrown into a crowd. The woman beside him looked like a punching bag, timidly following behind the man. She should be his wife. Jiang Shanke shielded Gong Coco behind him. Gong Coco did not recognize these people, but Jiang Shanke knew them. They were the original Gong Coco's family. They were from the countryside. After Gong Coco's mother died, the Gong Coco's family forcefully took Gong Coco away because of their son's illness. Jiang Shanke did not pay attention to this family in the past. He had only seen photos and did not know their relationship with the original Gong Coco. Now that he suddenly met them, it was a little tricky. Seeing that Gong Coco did not recognize him, the man frowned. "Xiaoya, I'm Zhou Jing. Your cousin. Why do you look like you don't recognize me?" As he spoke, he faced Jiang Shanke and lowered his voice by an octave. His expression was a little fawning. "This is your relative in the city. He is the young master of the Gong family." Gong Coco looked at Jiang Shanke in confusion. This kind of thing should be left to the man to deal with. Jiang Shanke said to Zhou Jing, "Coco lost her memory, so she doesn't remember you. I'm her husband. Do you need anything?" "Lost her memory?" Zhou Jing shouted exaggeratedly. Did that mean that Gong Coco did not recognize them? However, knowing that the especially imposing man in front of him was not from the Gong family, Zhou Jing was very disappointed. In his opinion, what kind of person could Gong Coco marry? This man was at most a little rich. However, when he saw Gong Coco's clothes, he suddenly rolled his eyes. Gong Coco looked much better than before. With one look, he could tell that she was doing well. Moreover, she had lost her memory. Zhou Jing's face suddenly fell and he put on a pained expression. Xiaoya. How did you lose your memory? No wonder you don't come home. You used to have such a good relationship with your family. After you left, our whole family missed you, but seeing that you're doing so well now, we're relieved. Gong Coco frowned. She felt that this person's eyes were flickering and his attitude had changed so quickly. He must be up to no good. But thinking that he was the original body's brother, Gong Coco still gave him a little face, nodding at him. It's nice to meet you, but we're going to eat. Eat? Good. Let's go together. Zhou Jing said hurriedly. Gong Coco had an incredulous expression on her face. This was the first time she had met someone who would climb a pole like this. However, considering that he was a relative of the original body, Gong Coco decided to treat him to a meal and then give him some money. Because they looked very poor, this was the best she could do. Jiang Shanke patted Gong Coco's back, telling her not to worry. No matter what, she still had him. He looked at Zhou Jing, and a glimmer of light flashed in his eyes. He smiled generously and said, "Okay, let's go then." After that, the few of them got into Jiang Shanke's car. After getting into the car, Zhou Jing exclaimed more than once. "Oh my God! Your car! Is it made of real leather? It's worth a lot of money. Haven't you seen this car logo before? Is it a foreign brand?" Gong Coco did not say anything. In this world, there were rich and poor people. There was no need to discriminate against them because of such a small matter. As long as they did not do anything excessive, Gong Coco would treat them the same. She just did not know whether this family was good or bad. If they were good, she was willing to help the original body. When they arrived at the restaurant, Zhou Jing made a tsk 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 sound again. He felt that his eyes were not enough. The city and the countryside were indeed different. Look at the dark gold decor, look at the style. Eating a meal here must be very expensive, right? He did not pay attention to his wife the entire time. That woman followed Zhou Jing step by step. Coming to a place like this made her feel especially uneasy. Jiang Shanke politely invited Zhou Jing to sit down. His eyes flashed with deep thought. After all, Kiki was not the original Kiki. If she was really a close relative, she would definitely be able to see through it at a glance. At that time, there would be a lot of trouble, such as the Gong family's unreasonable pestering. Therefore, he invited the other party to a meal. He also wanted to see if this relative, who was said to be very good to Gong Coco, could tell the difference. This restaurant was more famous for its official dishes. It was also one of the dishes that Gong Coco liked. Everyone ate their own dishes, and it was also more hygienic. The first dish was a soup, matsutake soup. When Zhou Jing opened it, he felt that the amount was too little. However, the taste was really good. He drank it in 2 mouthfuls and could not help but say, "Such a good soup, I'm afraid it's worth a few hundred yuan." In his eyes, a few hundred yuan for a bowl of soup was already a sky-high price. Jiang Shanke only smiled and did not say anything. The waiter at the side said respectfully, "This is our Hai Yen Qing Fu's famous dish. The price is 2,888. Before she could finish speaking, Zhou Jing let out a strange cry. A bowl of soup was actually sold for 3,000 yuan. Why didn't they just rob? However, when he caught a glimpse of Jiang Shanke's calm appearance, he forced himself to calm down. However, he was still a little worried and said in a low voice, That. Brother-in-law. Why did you invite me to such a high-class place to eat? We can just eat casually. This is so expensive. He emphasized the word invite, as if he was afraid that Jiang Shanke would not pay. Jiang Shanke smiled, it's fine. We usually eat this too. Zhou Jing was stunned. It seemed that this brother-in-law of his was even richer than he had imagined. His heart began to heat up. A tycoon who could casually pay more than 10,000 yuan for a meal must have a high net worth, right? Thus, he quickly smiled and said to Gong Coco, Xiaoya. Eat more. Look at you, you've lost weight. You didn't like to eat at home in the past. Why do you still have this problem now? Gong Coco smiled politely and did not say anything. Zhou Jing was a little angry. This girl had married a rich man, yet she still kicked him. However, with Jiang Shanke around, he forced a smile and played the family card, when are you coming home? Grandma misses you. His words put Gong Coco in a difficult position. She did not expect the Zhou family to have an elderly person. Daiyu State ruled the country with filial piety and was famous for its benevolence and righteousness. Since she had taken over the identity of the original owner of this body, there was no harm in helping her to show filial piety to the elderly. After all, it was a matter of money. As long as it could be solved with money, it was a small matter. Just then, Zhou Jing said, my wedding banquet is in a few days. Xiaoya, bring brother-in-law over for a drink. It's a good opportunity for the family to meet you. They've been missing you. Gong Coco thought for a moment and nodded, okay, I'll be there. Jiang Shanke narrowed his eyes. However, when he saw Gong Coco looking at him, he smiled and said, it's fine. I'll go with you. He wanted to see what kind of background this family had and whether they were worthy of Kiki. Chapter 908. Soon, it was the day of Zhou Jing's wedding. However, these few days were enough for Jiang Shanke to investigate this family thoroughly. As he expected, this family had a bad reputation. Take Zhou Jing for example. He had married a wife before, but because he liked domestic violence whenever he drank, he beat the woman until she filed for divorce. This was his second wife. However, he didn't find out much about their relationship with Gong Coco. After all, the original Gong Coco and her mother were very tight-lipped and rarely gossiped. However, it didn't matter. What they were like, wouldn't it be easy to find out? Gong Coco was currently dressing up. Perhaps because of the nourishment of love, she was now more radiant, showing the unique charm of her age. Now, she could occasionally understand Jiang Shanke's dirty jokes, but she was still very shy. Jiang Shanke especially liked to tease her because she was as cute as a thorny mimosa, and as charming as a rose that had just bloomed. Gong Coco was applying lipstick. She liked modern lipstick, unlike Changxi, because it was fragrant and moist. However, Jiang Shanke was not at ease with the lipstick outside. No matter how big the brand was, he was still worried about the quality. Therefore, he specially asked a branding master to customize a few lipsticks for Gong Coco. They were all flavors that she liked. There were strawberry, vanilla, and chocolate flavors. They were really edible. Before Gong Coco could say anything, Jiang Shanke lifted her chin and kissed her lips. Gong Coco widened her eyes. The warm sunlight shone in through the floor-to-ceiling windows and fell on the two of them, giving each other a layer of halo. Jiang Shanke ate the lipstick on Gong Coco's lips little by little under the soft light. That action was indescribably gentle and lingering. Honey-flavored. Jiang Shanke asked with a smile. Then, he looked at Gong Coco's blushing face. Her pair of eyes suddenly became moist, like a flower with dew, making people want to take a bite out of it. You're so annoying. I just finished applying it. Jiang Shanka smiled. It's okay, I'll apply it for you again. However, he didn't pick up Gong Coco's honey crystal lipstick. Instead, he picked up a dark coffee-flavored lipstick. This color is too dark. It doesn't match my dress. Gong Coco looked down at her white dress and rejected it. Jiang Shanka chuckled. But this one tastes pretty good. I like it a lot. In an instant, Gong Coco's face turned even redder. Jiang Shanka was becoming more and more indecent. However, no matter how much she rejected it, in the end, she still obediently let Jiang Shanka apply his favorite lipstick. This thick sweetness seemed to be able to seep through the lipstick and into her heart. After applying it, Gong Coco looked at the mirror shyly. She felt that Jiang Shanka had applied it quite well. Unexpectedly, Jiang Shanka touched his chin and said seriously. This color doesn't seem to match. Then, he lowered his head without any explanation and said with a smile, Don't move. I'll help you eat it and change it for another one. As he spoke, he sucked on her delicate lips and ate her lipstick. That aggressive and oppressive breath seemed to want to eat her whole. Gong Coco let out a whimper as if she was struggling. However, she slowly melted into a pool of spring water under his kiss. When Jiang Shanka wanted to eat Gong Coco for the third time, Gong Coco angrily stuffed a huge pile of lipstick into his arms. You're so annoying. Look at the time. Do you still want me to come downstairs? If you want to eat it, you can eat it yourself. Back then, she had thought that Jiang Shanka had ordered lipstick for her own good. She had even felt very touched. Who knew that this beast had done it for himself? Jiang Shanka said shamelessly. How can it taste better in my hand than on your lips? As he spoke, his handsome face revealed an expression of reminiscence. Besides, you're so cute. I don't want you to come downstairs anymore. The overly flirtatious voice scared Gong Kiki so much that she ran away, causing Jiang Shanka to laugh loudly behind her. Recently, Jiang Shanka had become more and more powerful. He could often tease her until her cheeks burned red and her heart pounded. Her status as the eldest princess seemed to be in jeopardy. After a fierce round of affection at home, Jiang Shanka personally took Gong Coco to the place that Zhou Jing had agreed to meet. He was afraid that Gong Coco would be taken advantage of, so he didn't go to the company today to accompany her. He actually didn't care about this family, but Gong Coco thought that she should do something for her since she had taken over the identity of the original body. Jiang Shanka couldn't deny it. Anyway, as long as it was what she said, he would support it. The car drove for a few hours because the place where Zhou Jing held the wedding banquet was just an ordinary restaurant. Compared to the large hotels in the business district, it was simply incomparable. However, Zhou Jing didn't greet the guests at this time. Instead, he was anxiously looking at the door as if he was waiting for someone. A middle-aged woman in her 40s followed Zhou Jing and asked suspiciously. Is Gong Coco really that rich now? Will she really come today? Zhou Jing was wearing a groom suit and stared at his mother. Mom! Why would I lie to you? That man treated me to a meal and spent 80,000 yuan. I saw him swipe the card with my own eyes. And one look at him and I can tell that he is a benefactor. Gong Coco has flown to the top this time. His mother nodded and looked excited. I didn't expect that wretched girl to have such good luck. Oh right. She really doesn't remember us. She doesn't remember. On this point, Zhou Jing was very sure. If she remembers, why would she let her man spend 80,000 yuan to treat me to a meal? It's not like you don't know that girl. She has been holding grudges since she was young. Although she doesn't say anything, she remembers it in her heart. His mother nodded. You're right. At this moment, Jiang Shanka's car arrived. Zhou Jing became excited when he saw it. Mom! Mom! Quickly go in and tell Grandma. Tell her to be careful and not let the cat out of the bag. She used to scold that girl. If she says something wrong, our plan will be ruined. When his mother heard this, she hurriedly ran in to let the air out. At this moment, the car stopped. Such a luxurious car parked in the middle of ordinary cars was very out of place. The guests who came and went were all curious about who it was. Did the Zhou family really have rich relatives? After Gong Coco got out of the car, she frowned. She was lucky to have met Jiang Shanka the moment she arrived. Her food and clothes were almost the standard of a princess. However, although the restaurant in front of her looked very clean, Gong Coco could still see the dirty and messy details at a glance. She thought to herself that she would have to go hungry for lunch today. Jiang Shanka closed the car door and whispered in her ear. It's okay. I'll bring you to eat something good later. Then, she saw Zhou Jing coming over personally. His attitude was as intimate as possible. Chapter 909. Gong Kiki wasn't used to the other party's enthusiasm. Jiang Shanka protected Gong Kiki as they walked in. Zhou Jing welcomed them with a smile. Those who didn't know would think that the one getting married today was Jiang Shanka. After entering, all the guests looked over. There was no helping it. The two of them were too dazzling, especially Gong Kiki, who was wearing a white dress and had long hair that reached her butt. She looked like a princess who walked out of a fairy tale. His predecessor's grandmother, Zhou Jing's grandmother, Su Qing, was impatient when she heard her third daughter-in-law repeatedly telling her not to offend Gong Kiki. She felt that no matter how much Gong Kiki changed, she was still the girl who could be beaten and scolded whenever she wanted. However, when she sat at the head of the table and saw Gong Kiki walk in, her old eyes widened in disbelief. She never thought that the little dark-skinned brat would become so beautiful after going to the city. Also, the clothes she was wearing and the shiny jewelry around her neck were obviously worth a lot of money. After being stunned for a while, her expression suddenly became angry. She thought that Gong Kiki would be abused by her stepmother. She never thought that she would become a phoenix after getting married. However, she didn't know how to show filial piety to the elderly when she was so rich. She was indeed an ungrateful wretch. At this time, the banquet hadn't started yet. Zhou Jing brought Gong Kiki to see Su Qing and said with a smile, "Grandmother. Look who's here to see you." As he said this, he gave the old woman a look. Su Qing saw it and revealed a fake smile as she pretended to be friendly. "Isn't this Xiaoya? You're different after going to the city. This old woman can't even recognize you." Her lukewarm attitude and lukewarm words made Zhou Jing feel awkward. Su Qing still couldn't change her mind. She couldn't bring herself to be amiable to this damned girl. Zhou Jing's face stiffened. Seeing Gong Kiki frown, he cursed the old woman in his heart. However, he helped to smooth things over on the surface. "Xiaoya, it's all your fault for not coming back for so long. Grandmother is angry at you. You just need to apologize." Gong Kiki became even more dissatisfied. Apologize? She didn't do anything wrong. It was clearly this old woman who was repulsed by her. The moment Gong Kiki's aggrieved expression appeared, Jiang Shanka immediately stood up. He was too popular, so Su Qing didn't dare to speak to him at first. She wanted to suppress Gong Kiki to suppress Jiang Shanka's spirit. Looks like Grandma doesn't welcome Kiki. Jiang Shanka's sharp gaze brought great pressure to everyone present. He shielded his wife behind him and chuckled softly. "Since that's the case, I won't bring Kiki here on this joyous occasion. Goodbye. After Jiang Shanke finished speaking, he took Gong Kiki away. But how could Zhou Jing let her go? He angrily glared at Su Qing. Su Qing did not expect Jiang Shanke to be so unyielding. She thought that Gong Kiki was still as easy to bully as before. Seeing that she was angry, she would bring Jiang Shanke along to apologize. Don't. Brother-in-law, my grandma is old. Her temper is a bit stubborn, but she really loves Xiaoya. Isn't she angry that she hasn't been back for too long? As he spoke, he gave Su Qing a look. Grandma. Say something. Xiaoya doesn't remember anything. How can you be angry with her? Su Qing's gloomy face darkened. However, when she thought of her grandson's plan, she suppressed her anger and pretended to be angry. You little girl, you haven't been back for so long, and you don't allow Grandma to talk about it. I doted on you for nothing when you were young. Only then did Gong Kiki frown. After pondering for a long time, she finally called her grandma. When Zhou Jing heard this, he laughed loudly. How great, the family is reunited. Today is really a double blessing. Come. Sit, don't be polite. Jiang Shanke pulled out a chair and carefully wiped it before letting Gong Kiki sit down. His actions made everyone in the Zhou family feel a bit awkward. It was as if the restaurant they had spent a lot of money to book was a low-class restaurant. After the two of them sat down, they did not touch their chopsticks. Originally, the couple had discussed that they would recognize each other and if there were no problems, they would give them some money. In the future, they would probably not have any dealings with each other. However, Jiang Shanke was very sharp. He felt that there was something wrong with this family, so he did not follow the original plan and directly give them money. He wanted to see what this group of people wanted to do. Zhou Jing let the whole family get close to Gong Kiki, and then he went to get married. The Zhou family could be considered to be a prosperous family. However, the strange thing was that most of the grandchildren were girls. Only Zhou Jing was a boy. Moreover, the girls were all very silent. Seeing them, Jiang Shanke felt as if he was looking at the Gong Kiki of the past. The 4 or 5 girls did not sit at the table. They only stood behind the elders like the maids of ancient times. Xiaoya, you're really getting more and more beautiful. Uncle almost couldn't recognize you anymore. The person who said this was the original Gong Kiki's mother's older brother. He looked very honest, but it was impossible to know a person's heart. Gong Kiki smiled but did not say anything. In the end, it was Jiang Shanke who said, Kiki lost her memory and doesn't remember you guys. I hope you guys can forgive her. Everyone had different expressions. At this time, Gong Kiki's second uncle tried to smooth things over and said, it's fine if you don't remember. We're still a family. Zhou Jing's father, Gong Kiki's third brother-in-law, rolled his eyes and sighed, how could you forget everything? It must be that the Gong family didn't treat Kiki well. That's why Kiki, we're your relatives. You used to like to play with your cousin. Although you don't remember now, as long as you keep in contact, this relationship will not be broken. Gong Kiki's heart became more and more flustered. She could tell whether a person was good or bad. To her, these people's gazes were as if they wanted to eat her up. The wedding march was playing over there, but no one was paying attention to the bride and groom. Instead, they surrounded her. It would be strange if they did not have a motive. Jiang Shanke patted Gong Kiki's back and said with a smile. Yes, we're all a family. As Kiki's husband, I'm one with her. If you have anything to say, just say it. Kiki's body is weak, so she can't be out for too long. At the round table, Gong Kiki's eldest aunt heard this and laughed, don't worry. Xiaoya can cook and wash dishes at the age of 6. How can she be that weak? Her words caused the atmosphere at the round table to drop to a freezing point. Jiang Shanke raised his eyebrows. She can cook and wash dishes at the age of 6. Her eldest uncle glared at his wife and explained, children from poor families can take care of the family at an early age. We're training Xiaoya's ability to be independent. Look at what you're saying. It's as if we're abusing Xiaoya. Jiang Shanke laughed. Before he could say anything, his second uncle secretly gave the old lady a look. The old lady understood and took advantage of Jiang Shanke's conversation to cover her chest and cried out softly. Chapter 9-10. Grandma. Mom. What's wrong with you? Because the old lady had suddenly fainted, the people at the main table were instantly in a mess and surrounded her. Jiang Shanke and Gong Kiki looked at this sudden farce with a meaningful look in their eyes. The other guests also surrounded them. When they saw them feeding medicine and pinching the old lady's philtrum, they were all shocked. However, before the enthusiastic guests could call for an ambulance, the old lady slowly woke up. The commotion was so scary, but in the end, it was a false alarm. None of the guests present understood what was going on. Gong Kiki frowned and finally said, "What's wrong with her? What was this family up to?" As soon as she spoke, the Zhou family instantly looked at her. Gong Kiki was shocked. At this moment, her brother-in-law chased the other guests away and told them to continue eating. Her eldest aunt helped the old lady up and cried softly. "Old people are useless. Your grandma is sick. Poor you. She raised you single-handedly when you were young. She hasn't seen you give birth, but her body is already weak." Gong Kiki already knew what they wanted to say. She pursed her lips and said, "What's her illness?" Her third aunt stammered, "I heard that it's gallbladder cancer." Sigh, this illness can actually be cured. She just needs 3 injections, but one injection costs 200,000 yuan. We don't have that much money. So this was the main point. Gong Kiki felt inexplicably sad for her predecessor. What kind of relatives were they? Seeing that Gong Kiki was silent, the old lady pretended to be in pain and held her stomach. She sighed. Don't make things difficult for Xiaoya. Her life is just getting better. How can she have 600,000 yuan? Anyway, I'm already so old. If I die, so be it. As soon as she finished speaking, the family would definitely try to persuade her. Jiang Shanke felt that it was quite novel. This family really dared to lie for money. He looked at the main table, which was far away, and then at the dozen or so guest tables below. He felt that they had a good plan. On one hand, they were collecting money for the wedding, and on the other hand, they were tricking Kiki into being the sucker. Because the scene was very noisy, no one could hear what they were saying. If it wasn't for the old lady's illness, no one would have noticed them. When the old lady saw that Gong Kiki and Jiang Shanke didn't say anything, hatred flashed through her cloudy eyes. She cried miserably, but there was not a single drop of tear. It's my bad life. The daughter I raised with so much difficulty is dead, and the granddaughter I've raised with so much difficulty doesn't even remember me. What's the point of me living? I'd rather die. Her daughter-in-law Kix's eyes. Her second aunt suddenly turned to Gong Kix's eyes. Kiki, this is your fault. Your grandmother treated you so well in the past. You can't just forget about it and not even pay for grandma's medical fees. If your grandmother hadn't taken you and your mother in when you were young, you wouldn't have had the chance to marry into a rich family. Her third aunt said in a low voice, "Don't say that. Xiaoya didn't say that she didn't want to pay. You're being so loud. Everyone heard you." Jiang Shanke and Gong Koko silently watched their performance. They originally wanted to give them money and take care of them, but that instantly disappeared. With such a character, it was easy to imagine what kind of life Gong Coco had led in the past. Gong Coco didn't have any experience dealing with this kind of scoundrel. She was so angry that her face was puffed up, but she still couldn't say anything disgraceful. On the other hand, Jiang Shanke was relatively calm. He let those people sing, and he hugged Gong Coco without moving. When they were almost done, Jiang Shanke slowly said, "After listening for a while, I heard you. After listening for so long, I finally understand. You want money to treat Grandma's illness, right? What a coincidence. I don't have much, but I do have a lot of money." Although Jiang Shanke's words sounded strange, when they heard him admit that he had money, the Zhou family stopped acting and stared at him without blinking. Gong Coco didn't know what Jiang Shanke wanted to do. She just stared at him. Jiang Shanke gave her a mysterious smile and gently caressed her face, hinting for her to watch the show. Because Jiang Shanke was good-looking and had an outstanding temperament, the difference between him and the people present was like heaven and earth. The Zhou family's young ladies stared at him in a daze. "Look at what young master is saying. We don't want money. This is just a token of our kindness as the younger generation. After all, mother was so good to Kiki in the past." Second aunt was the first to recover and said seriously, "Okay." Jiang Shanke stood up. The moment he stood up, the aura around him suddenly increased by a lot, giving people a feeling of superiority. Therefore, the guests who were eating all looked over. Some of the female guests saw him and couldn't take their eyes off him. Jiang Shanke ignored everyone's gazes and only made a phone call to the driver. "Bring the 2 boxes from the trunk up." Not long after he finished speaking, the driver came up. The 2 boxes in his hands were heavy, obviously filled with things. There was nothing new about the wedding of the country people. The guests were just feeling bored when they saw a bodyguard dressed in a black suit carrying 2 big boxes in. He walked towards the man who was as beautiful as a celebrity. Immediately, everyone curiously put down their chopsticks and gathered around. Jiang Shanke stretched out his hand and lazily pointed at the host's podium. The chauffeur-cum-bodyguard immediately understood. He walked up to the podium and opened the 2 big boxes. Instantly, the crowd gathered around and exclaimed, almost turning the entire banquet hall upside down. "So much money. This is the first time I've seen so much money in my life. There should be at least 5 million here, right?" The Zhou family members were even more stunned. Could it be that all this money was for them? It seemed that they had misjudged Jiang Shanke's economic level. He was obviously not an ordinary tycoon. Perhaps 700,000 was nothing to him. Jiang Shanke carried Gong Coco and walked towards the stage. Coincidentally, Zhou Jing and his new wife were also there. When Zhou Jing saw so much money, his eyes widened. Jiang Shanke chuckled. "The last time I met my cousin, he said that the Zhou family treated Kiki very well. So, as Kiki's husband, when I found out that my cousin was getting married, I prepared a little gift." His words confused the guests below the stage. Kiki. The beauty standing beside the handsome guy was actually Gong Coco. Some people recognized Kiki and revealed expressions of disbelief. Gong Coco had actually become so beautiful and even married such a good-looking person. When the Zhou family heard Jiang Shanke's words, they were even more ecstatic. So this money was all for them. But Jiang Shanke changed the topic, "But my wife has lost her memory and can't remember the past. How about this, as long as anyone can say something good to Kiki in the past, I'll reward them with 50,000 yuan. It'll help Kiki recall the past." Chapter 9-11. Jiang Shanke's words shocked everyone. The Zhou family's face changed. That is to say, these 2 boxes of money originally belonged to their Zhou family. But now, Jiang Shanke actually wants to reward others for helping Gong Coco find her memories. At this time, someone jokingly shouted from below the stage, "Outsiders who are good to Coco also get rewarded." Jiang Shanke smiled elegantly. He looked at Gong Coco beside him and gently said, "Of course, anyone who is good to my wife can get money from me. The better they are to her, the more money they will get. But if anyone dares to lie to me," Jiang Shanke's gaze swept across the crowd. That smile in his eyes actually made everyone's eager hearts cool down. "If anyone dares to lie to me, you will have to bear the consequences." It was clearly just a few simple words, but it made those who wanted to fish in troubled waters immediately dispel their thoughts. That's right, how could a man who dared to throw $50,000 or $50,000 away be a kind person? There were not many people who knew Gong Coco, but there were still some. At this time, a girl raised her hand. Jiang Shanke looked at her. Her whole body trembled and she stammered, I used to secretly deliver food to Coco, oh." Jiang Shanke and Gong Coco looked at each other. Jiang Shanke said, "Tell me about it." The girl looked at the gloomy Zhou family and stammered, "When I was 12, Gong Coco was beaten by her grandmother. She was locked in the woodshed and was not allowed to come out. I pitied her, so I stuffed a steamed bun from the hole in the wall." When Gong Coco heard this, she suddenly showed a pitiful expression. She knew that the original body was not happy, but she did not expect it to be so bitter. Seeing Gong Coco sad, Jiang Shanke quickly comforted her and said to the girl, "Good, you did well. Han Ren, give her 100,000. The driver named Han Ren quickly took out 100,000 and gave it to the girl. The girl was stunned. She never thought that one day, she would be able to get 100,000 just by saying a few words. She had never earned so much money in her entire life. The girl cheered in surprise, earning the envy of everyone around her. However, while they were happy, the Zhou family was terrified. If Jiang Shanke gave her money, wouldn't it mean that he believed what she said about Gong Coco being abused? Zhou Jing's forehead was covered in cold sweat. He wanted to say something to save the situation, but before he could get close to Jiang Shanke, he was blocked by Han Ren. The bodyguard's cold face scared Zhou Jing so much that his legs turned to jelly. Passing by Han Ren, Jiang Shanke's cold gaze fell on Zhou Jing, but there was a smile on his face. "I almost forgot about you. You said Kiki used to have the best relationship with you. What did you do for her?" Jiang Shanke's gentle voice made Zhou Jing gasp for breath, one word at a time. Zhou Jing was sweating profusely. He thought that since Gong Coco didn't remember anything, he forced a smile and said, "Of course I did. In the past, when we were in school, Kiki didn't like to walk, so I carried her to school." In a moment of desperation, he said whatever came to his mind, but he didn't know that there were many people present who were from Zhou Jing's hometown. Someone couldn't stand it anymore and shouted, "Liar." In the past, whenever Zhou Jing saw Gong Coco, he would beat her up. When he went to school, Zhou Jing's school bag was always carried by Gong Kiki. He even snatched Gong Coco's lunch. He even burned Gong Coco's hair. Everyone looked at each other and Zhou Jing's face turned pale. He wanted to slap himself. Wasn't he usually good at lying? Why did he drop the ball at such a crucial moment? He explained without thinking, that I was still young at that time. I was just being naughty and didn't do it on purpose. Jiang Shanke smiled and stroked Gong Kik's long hair from time to time as he spoke in a meaningful tone. "So you were lying to me when you said that you carried Kiki to school?" Jiang Shanke's voice suddenly turned cold. "I hate it when people lie to me." Zhou Jing felt danger and took a step back. In the end, he tripped and fell to the ground. He was in a sorry state, but no one dared to laugh at him because they were all intimidated by Jiang Shanka's eyes. Jiang Shanka looked at the crowd again. What else? Whoever treats Kiki well will be rewarded. A man with a bigger build suddenly stood up and said, when he was 13, Zhou Jing once smashed Gong Coco's head with a rock. He didn't help her stop the bleeding and even called her a burden and a jinx. I was the one who chased Zhou Jing away. Jiang Shanka nodded and said in a deep voice, Han Ren, give him 50,000. That person instantly received the money with great joy. I helped her too. After Gong Coco's mother died, the Zhou family's grandmother wanted to marry Gong Coco to the village chief's silly son. Kiki ran away from home and I was the one who secretly took her in. A woman said loudly. She didn't dare to say this to avoid hurting the neighbor's relationship, but for the sake of the money, who cared about the neighbors? Jiang Shanka narrowed his eyes. Give her 100,000. It was unbelievable that the man got the money. It was too easy to get the money. The guests from the same village racked their brains to think if they had done anything good. Miraculously, no one dared to lie. After all, Zhou Jing was so scared that he almost peed his pants. Under the stimulation of the money, the atmosphere was unprecedentedly lively. However, with everyone's words, they could roughly guess what kind of life Gong Coco had led in the Zhou family in the past. The people who exposed the news were all from the same village as the Zhou family. The Zhou family couldn't deny it even if they wanted to. After everyone finished speaking, there was still a lot of money left. At this moment, Jiang Shanka slowly turned around and looked at the Zhou family, whose faces were already pale. He raised his chin. Why didn't you say anything? Don't you want the money and don't want to treat your grandmother's illness? He smiled amiably, but the Zhou family was scared from the bottom of their hearts. They gradually came to their senses after seeing the money. This man used such a method to expose their lies. He was so generous. He was obviously not an ordinary person. What else did they dare to say? Say that they were good to Gong Coco. Didn't they see how Zhou Jing was exposed with just one sentence? In front of money, these neighbors were not people who stood firm. The old woman's face was pale. She trembled and said, You. What do you mean by this? I'm her grandmother. She's disobedient, so why can't I teach her a lesson? Jiang Shanka nodded. It's not wrong for you to teach her a lesson. I can't meddle in your family's affairs. However, you obviously didn't treat her well, but you lied to me because you wanted money. You said that you treated her very well. This is my problem. The Zhou family didn't dare to speak. They didn't expect Gong Coco to have found such a powerful husband. They also didn't expect this man to protect Gong Coco to this extent. He spent so much money just to seek justice for Gong Coco. Chapter 9:13. Gong Coco harumphed. Why can't you carry on the family line? Don't you have daughters? Zhou Jing has 2 daughters. It's not like he can't carry on the family line. Dayu State was already very open-minded, okay? In her era, although the status of women was generally low, it was because of her mother's existence that the status of women increased. When her brother was ruling the country, there were already 3 female officials in the imperial court. Why couldn't girls carry on the family line? Gong Coco's words made the girls in the Zhou family have strange expressions on their faces. They were the granddaughters of the old woman, but in the Zhou family, granddaughters were not human. They had been bullied by Zhou Jing since they were young, and this was the first time someone had spoken up for them. As expected, when they heard Gong Coco's words, the Zhou family, including the daughters-in-law of the Zhou family, looked at her with disdain. How can girls carry on the family line? What a joke. Girls are all going to get married. How can they be of one mind with the family? Zhou Jing's aunts said this in front of their daughters. Everyone who heard this had different expressions on their faces. Some people were conservative and thought that the Zhou family was right, but some more cultured families did not think so. Instead, they felt that the Zhou family was too biased. The old woman harumphed coldly. The son is one of us. The daughter is someone else's. I'm old. What's wrong with having a great-grandchild? So what if you go to the police station? This is my Zhou family's granddaughter-in-law. They even went to get their marriage certificate last week. Seeing that Gong Coco was so angry that she could not speak, she said proudly, my grandson is right. Their daughter's stomach is not good enough to give birth to a son. Why can't they change to another one? I heard that their second daughter is in high school. She's worthy of my grandson. Gong Coco sneered. Grandson, you're so stubborn. Could it be that your family has a throne to inherit? Her brother treated both boys and girls equally. Her brother was the emperor. Even he was not so stubborn. Gong Coco raised her chin. I think you're poor. The poorer you are, the more you want to give birth. If you have money, you can get married. If you don't have money, why do you insist on carrying on the family line? Are you trying to pass on your poverty for generations? This was the first time Gong Coco had said such harsh words to someone in her life. The Zhou family stared at Gong Coco angrily, as if they wanted to tear her apart. Jiang Shanke blocked Gong Coco behind him. He laughed coldly. What? You dare to do it, but you won't allow my wife to talk about it. I'm definitely going to get involved in this matter today. Even if they're married, can't they? The bride's is. The Zhou S's st est sss and families is. Estes tit, estes ts t tes stitessa ts you can't force us to divorce. Only then did Zhou Jing realize that he was afraid. However, he did not think that Jiang Shanke was capable of forcing him to get a divorce even if he did not want it. It's better to tear down 10 temples than to destroy a marriage. Xiaoya, you're committing a sin. Zhou Jing's aunt said. Gong Coco snorted. Forcing a marriage is considered marriage. I think it's more like making enemies. Call the police. Someone's causing trouble. Call the police. Zhou Jing's father said anxiously. No matter how rich this person was, it wouldn't look good if they went to the police. Jiang Shanke didn't have time to waste with them. It was enough to figure out the truth. He called the driver over and ordered. Call the police and get my lawyer to come over. Tell him to handle this matter properly. You stay here and wait for the police. Before that, protect the bride's family. Han Ren nodded and quickly did as he was told. When the Zhou family saw that Jiang Shanke was about to leave, they heaved a sigh of relief. They thought that making a scene would solve the problem, but who knew that the driver called Han Ren would call a group of bodyguards over, making it impossible for them to even get close to the bride, let alone pester her. Soon, the lawyer and the police arrived. The guests watched a good show. After this, the Zhou family would probably have to tuck their tails between their legs. Gong Coco came out with a face full of anger. Jiang Shanke, they can divorce, can't they? If they can't even be separated by force, that's too lawless. Jiang Shanke stroked Gong Coco's hair and comforted her. To be honest, although this was a society ruled by law, there were many things that the law couldn't control, but money and power could. He nodded. Don't worry. With me here, their family will get their retribution. Gong Coco's anger subsided. She sat in the car and suddenly became a little silent. What's wrong? Jiang Shanke asked gently as he drove. Did they disturb you just now? Gong Coco didn't dare to look into his eyes. She lowered her head and said softly, "No. I just feel that the previous Gong Coco had a very miserable life." She frowned and sighed. She obviously liked Meng Xiaoqing, but after seeing you, she wanted to marry you. I'm afraid she was also seeking protection because her family is not human. Jiang Shanke didn't want to talk about other women in front of her. Feelings were selfish. Although they looked very similar, in his heart, he liked the current Gong Coco and didn't like the previous Gong Coco. It was that hard to explain. Gong Coco suddenly murmured, "If I didn't come, she might have continued to exist here. You're good to me would have become good to her. Did I steal her life?" If it was in the past, Gong Coco would never have thought about these questions. However, after interacting with the Zhou family today, they all treated her as another pitiful girl. Only then did she understand that she had completely replaced another person. Could it be, because she had stolen someone else's life, the original Gong Coco had disappeared and even her corpse couldn't be found? Jiang Shanke saw that Gong Coco had been possessed. He stopped the car by the side and hurriedly comforted her. "No. Kiki, look at me." Jiang Shanke suddenly raised his voice. Gong Coco's unfocused gaze focused and looked at him without blinking. His handsome face looked very serious. "Kiki, you're different from her. I like you, not her. I came here tonight because of you. Because you wanted to know what the previous Gong Coco's family was like, that's why I came. Without you, I wouldn't have cared about this family at all, let alone talk to them. This is the difference between us." Gong Coco pursed her lips and looked at him pitifully. "But I look very similar to her. Since you like me, you'll like her in the future too. If it wasn't for me, her life might have been reversed. My appearance not only stole her life. I also stole your love for her." Jiang Shanke was speechless. He lifted her chin and kissed her, blocking her mouth. Chapter 9:14. Jiang Shanke didn't know why Gong Coco would think this way, but he knew that Gong Coco's current thoughts were very dangerous. This was the first time that Gong Coco resisted Jiang Shanke's kiss. She actually pushed him away. Gong Coco had internal energy, so if she really moved, Jiang Shanke wouldn't be her opponent. However, this was the first time that Jiang Shanke was pushed away by her. That feeling was really uncomfortable. "Coco, do you hate me?" Jiang Shanke pursed his lips and decided to change his strategy. Gong Coco lowered her head in panic. She felt very uncomfortable in her heart, but she didn't know what to say. However, she didn't hate Jiang Shanke, not at all. Seeing this, Jiang Shanke's movements were very light as he touched her hair. Gong Coco dodged for a moment, but gradually stopped dodging and allowed Jiang Shanke to get close to her. Jiang Shanke sighed. "You little girl, if I knew that you would be so stubborn, I wouldn't have brought you today." He revealed a wronged expression. "I thought that you would be happy if I satisfied your thoughts, but who knew that you don't want to talk to me anymore?" Gong Coco hurriedly shook her head and moved closer to him. She raised her head and looked at him with a troubled expression. "I'm not ignoring you." She pursed her lips, but in the end, she didn't say anything. Jiang Shanke hugged her in his arms. "Silly girl, you and her are different. When I saw her, even if she was pretty, I didn't feel anything. But you're different. When I first saw you, I thought, where did this little cutie come from? Since you're here, then stay." Jiang Shanke's words made Gong Coco laugh. Seeing her laugh, Jiang Shanke heaved a sigh of relief and said seriously, "Coco, I'll be honest with you. I'm not a good person. I don't care about people I don't care about. You might think that I'm heartless. I said that I wanted to help the previous Gong Coco, but other than helping her block the Gong family and helping her with her career, I didn't pay any more attention to her. This isn't something that will change with time, so you're different. Gong Coco buried her head in his arms and didn't say anything. Jiang Shanke patted her back. So silly girl, don't worry about this, okay? You didn't steal anyone's life, and you didn't steal anyone's person. Feelings are selfish. I like you, I only like you. This is also selfish. Gong Coco knew that she shouldn't, but hearing him say this, her heart still felt sweet. However, when she thought of the Zhou family, her smile collapsed. The previous Gong Coco was so pitiful. She didn't seem to have lived a good life. That Zhou family is too much. Jiang Shanke lowered his head and pinched her fair little face. Don't worry, I'll take care of it. I guarantee that you'll be satisfied with the results, okay? My little princess, my little grandaunt, my little ancestor. Don't think so much, okay? Gong Coco nodded and smiled. Jiang Shanke heaved a sigh of relief in his heart, but still felt that he couldn't let her do whatever she wanted in the future. Otherwise, if something like today happened again, not only would there be no reward, but it would also destroy the relationship between husband and wife. Wouldn't that be a thankless task? When they reached home, Gong Coco went to bed early because she was tired. Jiang Shanke looked at her sleeping face, smiled, and gently planted a kiss on her forehead. Actually, how could there be so many reasons for liking someone? Moreover, this little fellow was so likable. She felt as pure as the clouds in the sky. For someone like him who lived in the dark, there was a fatal attraction. It was that simple. However, he had to do something to break the knot in this little fellow's heart. He couldn't let her always feel that she was replacing someone else. Who knew that in the middle of the night, Gong Coco suddenly opened her eyes. She glanced at Jiang Shanke beside her and a trace of reluctance flashed across her eyes. However, very quickly, this reluctance was covered by determination. She quietly left the room and directly left the Jiang family's mansion. She was still brooding over what happened during the day. Gong Coco felt sad when she thought that if it wasn't for her, that pitiful girl might have been able to slowly obtain Jiang Shanke's love and then return all the suffering of the past to live a different life. When she came here, not only did she not suffer any hardships, but she also enjoyed everything that the original body did not enjoy. This feeling. It was as if she had stolen someone else's happiness. As she thought of this, she went to the lake that she had appeared at when she came here. Because it was late at night, there was no one by the lake. A gust of wind blew and Gong Coco felt very cold. At that time, she had come out from this lake. Would that girl come back if she jumped in? Gong Coco walked step by step towards the lake. She actually wanted to go back. In Daiyu State, she had her brother. If it wasn't for her, her brother would be lonely. However, she didn't know the way back. Jiang Shanke had told her that the space-time exchange had been completed. Even if she jumped in, she wouldn't be able to go back. She believed that Jiang Shanke had never been here before. However, she was here today. Perhaps she could give it a try and see if she really couldn't go back. If she really couldn't go back, she could tell herself that she didn't mean to occupy someone else's life. She just couldn't go back. If she went back, it would be good if she went back. She still had her brother and Uncle Chio. Without her, Uncle Chio would be a fool. What if he got bullied? Gong Coco hesitated by the lake. As she thought of this, it seemed that whether she went back or not, it would be a good outcome for her. She would either have a clear conscience or be able to see her family. Hence, Gong Coco walked forward a little more. The pitch-black lake water was like a giant monster waiting to swallow her alive. If she took another small step forward, she would fall in. When Jiang Shanke woke up, he touched the side of his hand and was abruptly jolted awake. "Coco!" He called out, but he didn't hear Gong Coco's voice. Jiang Shanka lowered his head and thought for a moment. Suddenly, he jumped out of bed. Oh no! Gong Coco wanted to jump in several times, but she resisted in the end. She didn't know how to describe her feelings at that moment. Jumping in clearly wouldn't affect her. At most, she would have a slim chance of going back. So why didn't she jump? Why didn't she dare to jump? Could it be that she was afraid that she would go back? Gong Coco suddenly squatted down. No, she wanted to go back. She wanted to be with her brother. She wanted to find her father and mother with her brother. But what about Jiang Shanka? She had been here for so long, but she had never seen Jiang Shanka's family. He had always been alone. Moreover, he was very good to her. He was very gentle. That kind of gentleness was different from the gentleness she got from her brother and Uncle Chiu. It made her heart palpitate. It made her afraid. It made her look forward to it. Gong Coco buried her head between her knees. The possibility of jumping in and going back wasn't high, but she didn't even dare to take the risk. Just to stay by Jiang Shanka's side. Because she liked him. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.